C1383 Ren Xia. Chapter 1383 Ren Xia 1383 Ren Xia. Hey, Tianyang. Tell me you aren't seriously going to let them follow us. She's a crafty woman with ulterior motives. Kulis asked him through divine sense. Tianyang sighed, responding, we might as well, unless you can convince them to not follow us. That's impossible. She's the type of woman to do whatever she wants. The only way to stop her would be to kill her. Are you suggesting that we kill your fiancé? There aren't any witnesses here, after all. Oh, of course not. As much as I dislike her, I cannot justify killing her over something like this, right? Then we might as well let her follow us and guide us to the treasures. I guess. Kulis sighed inwardly, feeling defeated. Also, they don't know my identity yet. Call me Xiaoyang for now. Tianyang suggested. Okay. Meanwhile, the ladies were having a conversation of their own through divine sense. Sister Ren, why do you want to follow them? Are you trying to avenge young Master Gulim? Gulim? I couldn't care less about that idiot. I'm more interested in Kulis' friend. Ren Xia said. That man? Why? He's essentially a wanted criminal at this point for killing Gulim. Yeah. It'd be unwise to associate ourselves with him. What if the Immortal Gu clan comes after us too? That won't happen. Ren Xia said in a confident tone. She continued, I also want to see what kind of person is worthy of Kulis' acknowledgement. But I don't think that is worth offending the Immortal Gu clan. Ren Xia looked at them and sighed. I am not going to force you to follow me, nor will I blame you for leaving. This is my own selfish action after all. The three ladies exchanged glances with each other. After a moment of silence, they lowered their head to Ren Xia and said, Sorry, Sister Ren, but we cannot afford to offend the Immortal Gu clan. We hope for your understanding. Ren Xia shook her head. I already said that I won't blame you. Are you sure you want to follow them? You'll be alone. If you're afraid they'll do something to me, why don't you stay? If not, stop with the pointless worry and leave already. The ladies bowed to her again before leaving. Tianyang was surprised when Ren Xia's group suddenly left her alone. I thought they were friends? He shook his head inwardly. When she noticed the gazes on her, Ren Xia looked at them and shrugged. Unlike me, those girls don't come from a background that is powerful enough to stop the Immortal Gu clan, so they cannot afford to offend them. Moreover, you won't be as worried about my presence if I am alone, right? Sure enough, Tianyang no longer had to worry as much now that Ren Xia was alone, as he was confident in dealing with her if any problem arose. I'm more interested in these treasures you mentioned. Tell me about them. Tianyang said a moment later. Just like the first section, there are trials scattered around this place. Anyone can challenge these trials, but only one person will be able to acquire the reward. Moreover, these treasures are not limited to the tomb, so we can bring them to the outside world with us. Ren Xia explained. What kind of treasures are we talking about? Kulis asked. Ren Xia didn't respond, acting as though she didn't even hear his question. This bitch is ignoring me on purpose. Kulis stared at her with a cold gaze. So what kind of treasure can we earn from these trials? Tianyang asked a moment later. From spiritual weapons to powerful techniques. Ren Xia responded with a calm smile on her face. Techniques. Tianyang's eyes shone with excitement after hearing this information. He lacked three things before entering the tomb: talent, treasures, and techniques. After spending nearly an entire year in the first section of the tomb, Tianyang solved his talent issues, and acquiring Gulim's spatial ring somewhat solved his treasure issue. The only thing he lacked at the moment was powerful martial techniques. I only know some basic techniques from the sect, with the immortal rending sword strike being the strongest amongst all the techniques I know. Although I may have some talent now, I will still be at a huge disadvantage against those with similar strength, but superior techniques. Do you know any trials that award techniques? Tianyang then asked. Several, she nodded. I want to visit these places first. Okay. Ren Xia nodded. It'll take us to the nearest one first. Follow me. As they followed her, Kulis asked. What are the chances that someone has already cleared these trials? And how long has it been since you left this place? Ren Xia pretended to not hear him again. How dare you so blatantly ignore me? Do you truly believe that I won't touch you because you're my fiancé? Kulus gritted his teeth and clenched his fists in anger. However, Ren Xia continued to ignore him. Seeing this, Tianyang sighed inwardly before speaking. I'd like to know as well. I left this place for about 2 months. Although it's not impossible, the chances of these trials being cleared are incredibly low. In fact, compared to the trials in the first section, the trials here are on another level of difficulty. Tianyang swallowed nervously after learning of this information. Ren Xia continued a moment later. With that being said, not every trial will kill you. You'll know what I mean once we arrive at our destination. By the way, we'll get there faster on a flying treasure. Do you have one? Ren Xia looked at Tianyang, who quickly shook his head. Then I'll share mine with you. Ren Xia retrieved her flying treasure that looked like a living white crane before patting the space in front of her with a charming smile on her face. Tianyang immediately hesitated to share a ride with her. Kulus then said, ride with me instead. As Tianyang turned to look at Kulus, he summoned a large white tiger. Tianyang frowned upon seeing this and exclaimed, you had a flying treasure this entire time. Don't tell me it's the expensive kind that doesn't require replacement once it runs out of spiritual energy. It is. Kulus calmly confirmed. You rascal. Why didn't you bring this out earlier when we were in the first section? It could have saved us so much travel time. Tianyang shouted in frustration. Kulus responded with a teasing smile. You never asked. C1384 Stone Sword. Chapter 1384 Stone Sword. 1384 Stone Sword. Tianyang held a look of disbelief on his face after hearing Kulus' response. Seeing this, Kulus couldn't help but burst out laughing. Ren Xia silently watched their interaction with widened eyes. She was skeptical that Kulus and Tianyang were friends at first, but after seeing their interaction, she had no choice but to believe it. Moreover, she has never seen Kulus laughing so heartily before. Sometime later, Tianyang jumped on Kulus' flying treasure and started following Ren Xia. The white swan fluttered its wings and flew in the sky like a real being while the white tiger ran in the sky, almost as though there was an invisible platform for it to traverse. If one saw them from a distance, they could easily be mistaken for authentic magical beasts. The flying treasures moved at extreme speeds, much faster than the flying treasure used by the Huang family during their escape. Furthermore, it didn't require as much spiritual energy from the user to maintain top speed. They were incomparably better than ordinary flying treasures. The only downside of these flying treasures would be their astronomically high price tag, something even extremely wealthy families would not dare consider buying more than one. Within half an hour, Tianyang and his group covered a distance that would typically take them a month if they had traveled normally. When Tianyang realized how much time they had wasted in the first section, he felt a strong urge to smack Kulus in the back of his head, but he eventually controlled his urges. After another half an hour, Ren Xia's flying treasure quickly slowed down to a halt. We're here, she said, her gaze pointing at the large sword in the distance. What is that? Tianyang mumbled in a dazed voice as he used divine sense to take a closer look. Several miles in the distance, a sizable stone sword appeared, seemingly thrust into the ground. On closer inspection, one could discern engraved words on the blade, each character seemingly etched with the precision of a sword stroke. We call it Han Zexian stone sword, and we believe that it's trying to pass down a profound sword technique. Han Zexian was known to be a powerful swordmaster with hundreds of terrifying sword techniques at his disposal, so it's likely that this is one of them. Tianyang swallowed nervously. He could feel an unfathomable aura emitted by the stone sword even from such a distance. When they got closer to the stone sword, Tianyang noticed tens of thousands of cultivators were sitting in front of the stone sword, their gazes glued to its blade. However, unlike the first section, there was no protection from the tomb to safeguard these people while they tried to comprehend the technique within the stone sword. I don't wield the sword, so I won't bother trying to comprehend it, Kulus suddenly said. He turned to look at Tianyang and asked, how long do you think it'll take you to comprehend it? Tianyang looked at him with raised eyebrows. Why are you making it sound like I am guaranteed to comprehend it? Countless people must have tried to comprehend it for the past year, but it's still here. If anybody can comprehend it, it'll be the only person who managed to clear a Jade difficulty trial. Kula smiled. What? Ren Xia turned to look at Tianyang with wide eyes. You cleared a trial from a Jade altar? He calmly nodded. Ren Xia was left speechless upon learning this information. She knew a few people from the Immortal clans also took the Jade altar's trial, but none of them survived. Just who is this man? He can't be a mere nobody. Ren Xia thought to herself. A moment later she spoke. Now that I think about it, we never had a proper introduction. I'm Ren Xia, youngest of the Immortal Sword clan. Xiaoyang, a rogue cultivator. Tianyang lied like it was in his nature. A rogue cultivator? Ren Xia instantly knew that Tianyang was lying, but she had no proof. Is he worried that I will expose his identity to the Immortal Gu clan? Well, I don't blame him for being cautious. She decided to play along. As they got closer to the stone sword, Ren Xia warned, there won't be any safe zone in this place, so make sure you don't focus entirely on the stone sword and forget about your surroundings. With that being said, nobody would dare to cause a commotion that could disturb everyone here. Kulis then said, don't worry about your safety and focus on the stone sword. I'll watch your back. Tianyang nodded and took a seat before the stone sword a moment later. He closed his eyes and took a deep breath. When he reopened them, they were completely focused on the engravings on the stone sword. How long do people tend to stay here? Kulis asked Ren Xia a moment later. Are you seriously going to continue ignoring me? Why are you acting so childish? She glanced at him and sneered. Says the one who ran away from home a year ago. I did not run away. I merely went on a journey to find out my own path. Whatever you say. After a moment of silence, Ren Xia continued. Most people leave within a month if they don't see any progress, while some have been here for over 6 months. And how does this trial work? Does the stone sword go away once someone comprehends the technique? Kulis asked. That's what happened to the others. There is more than one stone sword. Not just stone swords. There are sabers, axes, bows, all kinds of weapons. Huh? Why does he have so many different kinds of techniques? I also never heard of Han Zexian wielding anything other than swords. It's widely known that Han Zexian had multiple identities, but the exact number remains a mystery. Only a few are aware, and we lack confirmation. But there's a belief that one of Han Zexian's many aliases was Ambiguous Hoarder. Ren Xia disclosed through divine sense. Ambiguous Hoarder. Are you sure? Kulis was shocked to learn this information. Like I said, we don't have proof, but after seeing the unfathomable amount of treasures in this place, I would be willing to bet on it being true. Ren Xia sighed. C1385 Ambiguous Hoarder. Chapter 1385 Ambiguous Hoarder 1385 Ambiguous Hoarder Ambiguous Hoarder. If this information is true, this tomb is much more precious than originally anticipated. Kulis swallowed nervously after learning of this information. The Ambiguous Hoarder was a mysterious individual who was known for collecting all sorts of valuable treasures and techniques in the divine heaven about 5,000 years ago. He would often show up at auction houses and expensive stores, emptying their stock in storage. If he wasn't at auction houses, he would be approaching people directly to purchase their valuables with offers that were hard to refuse. Nobody knew why the Ambiguous Hoarder needed so much treasure, nor where he acquired the wealth to purchase so much treasure. The Ambiguous Hoarder was active for 500 years before vanishing like a ghost, and people believed that he had the largest collection of treasure in the entire world. When the Ambiguous Hoarder vanished without a trace alongside his treasures, people believed that he had perished and began searching for his remains. But alas, even after spending countless resources and many decades searching, they remained empty-handed. If Han Zexian is truly the Ambiguous Hoarder, that technique might be here. Kulis turned to look at Tianyang. The Ambiguous Hoarder had a specific technique that Kulis had always wanted to learn, but it was only a pipe dream since nobody knew where the Ambiguous Hoarder had disappeared to. However, if Han Zexian turned out to be the famous Ambiguous Hoarder, he might actually have a chance of acquiring said technique and fulfilling his dreams. The only problem was that Head promised Tianyang that He'd travel with him, so he couldn't just leave by himself. 1 month. I will only wait for a month, so you better comprehend the technique by then, Tianyang. Kulis gritted his teeth and suppressed his urges. Meanwhile, Tianyang continued to stare at the engravings on the stone sword without blinking. Time slipped away swiftly, and in the blink of an eye, a week had passed. Throughout this period, Tianyang tirelessly recited the engravings in his mind hundreds of times each day, witnessing rapid growth in his comprehension of their meaning. Unbeknownst to Tianyang at that time, his true talent did not lie within cultivation, but in an entirely different domain. On the 10th day of his study, Tianyang abruptly entered a trance-like state. Though he continued reciting the engravings in his mind, it was now happening subconsciously. The atmosphere around Tianyang began to change. It was subtle and barely noticeable at first, but it grew increasingly profound and noticeable. No way is that. Ren Xia doubted her eyes at first, and even rubbed them before taking another look at Tianyang. Enlightenment. Kulis sucked in a cold breath of air after realizing what was happening to Tianyang. Even a genius like him had never experienced enlightenment before. Don't tell me that he'll actually comprehend the stone sword's technique? Ren Xia swallowed nervously before muttering in a dazed voice. Although it took some time, the people around Tianyang eventually noticed the weird atmosphere around him, and shifted their focus away from the stone sword to focus on Tianyang. Am I seeing things? How long has it been since he started studying the stone sword? He was already here when I arrived a week ago. He wasn't here 2 weeks ago. A small commotion erupted around Tianyang that quickly spread like wildfire, until it inevitably disturbed everyone there. Who is that young man? I don't recognize him. Me neither. Look at the profound atmosphere around him. He must have come from a powerful background. That's called enlightenment, you ignorant one. One's background has nothing to do with it. In fact, it's not something even the geniuses in the immortal clans could bring forth at will. Despite the envy that many harbored towards Tianyang's situation, nobody dared to disturb him. It was an unspoken rule to never interrupt someone in a state of enlightenment, a state believed to be bestowed by the heavens. Therefore, anyone breaking this rule was considered to be defying the will of heaven and inviting its wrath. Furthermore, given the rarity of enlightenment, being able to witness such a phenomenon could be considered a stroke of good luck. No sane person would intentionally disrupt an event that most individuals go their entire lives without witnessing. Since Tianyang entered enlightenment, time appeared to have slowed down. Eventually, after 3 days of profound silence, a shift occurred, and a semi-transparent sword materialized above Tianyang, slowly orbiting around him. After another 3 days had elapsed, a second sword manifested above him, followed by a third 2 days later. Each of these swords exuded an otherworldly aura, almost as if they existed between the boundary of their world and another. On the 9th day since Tianyang entered his enlightenment, the fourth and final sword materialized above him. For otherworldly swords orbited around him, endowing him with a divine presence, as though he had transcended into a sword divinity. The swords vanished as Tianyang opened his eyes. Simultaneously, substantial cracks surfaced on the stone sword before them, eventually causing it to crumble into a mountain of stones. Shortly after Tianyang emerged from his enlightenment, the people there snapped out of their daze and approached him, bombarding him with the same questions. Hey, what sword technique did you acquire from the stone sword? Please, tell us its name. What rank is this technique? I'm willing to purchase the technique from you. Give me a price. Pap. A clapping sound loud enough to stun everyone there suddenly resounded, startling everyone there. When they turned to look at the person who caused the commotion, they saw an old man with a group of young people behind him. That's the sect leader of the 7 Divine Sword Peaks. Nearly everyone there immediately recognized the old man's identity, who was the leader of one of the most prestigious sects in the Divine Heaven. C1386 7 Divine Sword Peaks. Chapter 1386 7 Divine Sword Peaks 1386 7 Divine Sword Peaks 7 Divine Sword Peaks. Even a nobody like Tianyang has heard of their name. The 7 Divine Sword Peaks stood as a formidable powerhouse in the Divine Heavens, ranking within the top 3 among all sections. Boasting several golden immortals within their ranks, they were renowned for their prowess in producing accomplished swordmasters. The elderly man guiding the group held the esteemed position of sect leader in this powerful sect. A renowned swordmaster named Tang Jian. When Tianyang saw Tang Jian approaching him, he stood up and asked, "What do you want?" "This rude bastard. Watch your mouth. Who do you think you are talking to?" The people behind Tang Jian glared at him. Tang Jian raised his arm and gestured for his disciples to calm down. He then spoke in a calm yet overbearing tone. "I am Tang Jian, sect leader of the 7 divine sword peaks, and I would like to know the name of the technique you acquired from that stone tomb." Tianyang did not immediately respond, and a moment later he spoke, "I don't know." Tang Jian narrowed his eyes, causing the atmosphere to change. "Do you really expect me to believe that when you comprehended the technique?" he asked. "The stone tablet only taught me the technique, not its name." Tang Jian had a hard time believing Tianyang's claim, because most if not all people who passed down their techniques wouldn't leave out something as important as its name, as that would be throwing out its very identity. "In that case, can you show me the technique itself?" Tang Jian asked a moment later, as he would be able to identify the technique through its movements. However, Tianyang quickly responded without an ounce of hesitation in his voice. "Unfortunately, I do not have enough spiritual energy to perform the technique. I only entered Peak Spirit King, and this technique requires me to be at least Spirit Sovereign." This little brat. Tang Jian could feel his blood warming up. He has seen his fair share of bold individuals throughout his life, but he has never encountered someone as daring as Tianyang. "Are you mocking our master? The audacity! I'm going to cut you into 100 pieces." The people behind Tang Jian suddenly withdrew their weapons. Before Tang Jian could even react, Kulis appeared between them and Tianyang and said, "Even if you are from the 7 divine sword peaks, I won't sit still if you're going to harm my friend." "Ha! Who the hell are you? You can die with him if you want." The disciples did not recognize Kulis. "All of you halt!" Tang Jian suddenly shouted, releasing an overbearing pressure that froze everyone in their tracks. He released the pressure a moment later and spoke. "He is the young master of the Immortal Might clan. If any of you wish to proceed after learning this fact, I won't step in to defend you if anything goes wrong." "What? He's from the Immortal clans?" The disciples immediately began sweating after learning of this information. Ren Xia suddenly entered the scene and said with a profound smile on her face, "Is the righteous 7 divine sword peaks going to bully a single individual over a technique that had acquired fair and square?" "Fairy Run. Is he also a friend of yours?" The disciples immediately recognized her identity this time. Tang Jian's eyebrows twitched at Ren Xia's question, which brought up their honor and status as a righteous sect. If they continued to pressure Tianyang in front of so many people, their honor would be damaged, and their righteousness would be questioned. "Lady Ren, your words are quite harsh. Since when did we bully him? I am merely interested in the technique he learned and inquired about it. Since he is unable to answer my questions, I will leave it at this. We will depart now." Tang Jian turned around and began walking away. At the same time, Tang Jian's voice resounded inside Tianyang's head. "You have made a grave mistake today. Pray that we don't encounter each other again." Omicron hearing this, Tianyang sneered inwardly. Whether it be the young master of the Immortal Gu clan, or the sect leader of a powerful sect, they love to abuse their authority and mess with the powerless. How are they any different than bandits that terrorize the innocent? Unfortunately, due to this encounter, he now found himself burdened with the concern of the 7 divine sword peaks pursuing him, adding to the already looming threat from the immortal clans. "Fuck, I swear the heavens are still messing with me." Tianyang looked at the sky with a gaze full of resentment. "Let's quickly get out of here," Kulis said to Tianyang through divine sense. They quickly left the scene on their flying treasure shortly after. "I can't believe you actually dared to mess with the 7 divine sword peaks, their sect leader, no less. Why didn't you just tell them about the technique? It's not like it would kill you to answer." Kulis sighed out loud. "If had approached me differently, I wouldn't have minded telling them." However, he was haughty and overbearing even before he started speaking. Regardless of his title, he was no different from a wild bandit in my eyes, and I won't entertain a bandit even if it kills me. Tianyang sneered. Ren Xia laughed out loud. Ha ha. I cannot believe you. I doubted you had the guts to offend the immortal clans, but after seeing how you dared to pick a fight with one of the most powerful sects in the world, their sect leader no less, I have no other choice but to believe it. Kulis ignored Ren Xia's words and asked Tianyang with a curious look on his face. So? What kind of technique did you learn? You can tell me, right? Tianyang nodded and calmly responded, Limitless Sword Domain. Limitless Sword Domain. Kulis exclaimed in a shocked voice. Even Ren Xia had a look of disbelief on her face, her eyes wide like saucers. C1387 Limitless Sword Domain. Chapter 1387 Limitless Sword Domain 1387 Limitless Sword Domain. You've heard of this technique? Judging by Kulis' reaction to its name, Tianyang already knew the answer to his own question, even without needing a response from Kulis. Oh, of course. Anyone who knows even the slightest about Han Zexian would know of the Limitless Sword Domain technique. It's one of his signature moves, a technique had used to destroy the infamous burning demonic sect overnight. Kulis exclaimed. If you've really learned that technique, you've struck gold, Ti Xiaoyang. Do you think you can show it to me? However, Tianyang showed a bittersweet smile on his face and sighed. When I told the 7 Divine Sword Peaks sect leader that I lacked the capability to use the technique in my current state, I wasn't lying. The best I can do is create 4 swords and control them like flying swords. It's pathetic when compared to what the stone sword showed me. What did the stone sword show you? Kulis asked in a nervous voice. A man that covered the sky with hundreds of swords manifested with spiritual energy, and commanded each of them simultaneously, as if there is a sword master controlling each sword individually. Tianyang sighed with a look of admiration on his face, as he recalled the images he saw during enlightenment. The man, presumably Han Zexian, conjured hundreds of swords made of pure spiritual energy, infusing them with sword aura. When he unleashed them upon his target, it created the illusion of the heavens themselves meting out punishment. It was a grandiose display of unfathomable prowess and talent, something Tianyang wanted to achieve one day. Hey, I have something to tell you, Kulis suddenly said with a serious look on his face. What is it? Have you heard of the Ambiguous Hoarder? Tianyang nodded. He was a mysterious collector several thousand years ago that vanished into thin air, correct? He wasn't just a collector. He had the most expansive and valuable treasury in the world. There's a good chance that Ambiguous Hoarder's true identity is Han Zexian. What? Tianyang's eyes widened with surprise. No wonder why all sorts of valuable treasures and resources exist in this tomb. Kulis nodded and continued. Now hayrase what I actually wanted to tell you. The Ambiguous Hoarder was known to have a certain technique meant for body refiners such as myself. This technique could grant one a nearly indestructible body and amplify their innate strength immensely. If the Ambiguous Hoarder, Han Zexian, left behind something as valuable as the Limitless Sword Domain, I have no doubt he also left behind that technique. You want to learn it, right? Tianyang asked. Kulis nodded with a serious expression and said, Originally, I only came here to train myself, but this information changed everything. If you don't mind, I would like to spend some time looking for it. Tianyang responded with a calm smile on his face. Of course. Let's focus on your technique for now then. Are you sure? What about your journey? Kulis asked. What are you talking about? We're traveling together, so this isn't my journey alone. I have already benefited immensely thus far, and you've been following me this entire time, so it would only be fair for me to follow you now. Thank you. Kulis showed a bright smile. Tianyang shifted his gaze to Ren Xia and spoke. You heard our conversation. Do you know anything about it? Ren Xia contemplated for a moment before responding. If it's related to body refiners, it must be a body refining technique. I'm aware of 3 stone tablets that suggest such a technique. Can you show us the way? Tianyang asked. I'll show you one of them for free, but I'll need some sort of payment for the rest. But you said that you'd show us if we allowed you to follow us. Tianyang frowned. I was only talking to you. Since this is something that directly benefits Kulis, I won't be doing this for free. Kulis sucked his teeth in an annoyed manner and said, Fine, I'll pay you if the first one isn't what I want. Ren Xia showed a beautiful smile and said, Very well. Follow me. I'll take you to the nearest one first. A few hours later, they arrived before a massive stone tablet that did not take the shape of any weapons, and just like the stone sword, there were thousands of people studying it. Kulis clenched his fists with excitement and said, Give me 1 month. If I cannot comprehend its name by then, we will move on to the next one. Tianyang nodded and said, I will watch your back. Omicron thanks. Then I will be right back. Kulis immediately sat before the stone tablet and stared at it with a serious expression on his face. Tianyang sat right behind Kulis and started cultivating. Due to how fast he advanced his cultivation to the peak of Spirit King, it had yet to fully stabilize. Of course, he didn't fully immerse himself in cultivation, as he still had to protect Kulis even if the chances of someone bothering him were close to zero. Shortly after Tianyang settled into his seat, he sensed someone sitting right beside him, and a sweet, flowery scent enveloped his senses. How did you two meet? Ren Xia's voice suddenly resounded inside his head. As much as he wanted to ignore her, he couldn't ignore that she was the reason he learned Limitless sword domain. By chance. He found me when I was dying in the desolate continent, and saved my life. Xiaoyang, isn't it? You're a fascinating individual. The more time I spend by your side, the more I sense that you're truly unique. Ren Xia wore a charming smile as she gazed at him. Tianyang looked at her and asked, Why are you so cold to Kulis? He's your fiancé, no? Sure. A fiancé that was chosen by my family, and neither of us actually want to be with each other. Honestly, our engagement is bound to fail. Kulis ran away from his family because he did not want to be tied down by our engagement, but if he hadn't done so, I would have done it. As for why I mess with him, it's just another means of entertainment. Even though he's always cold towards others and seems unapproachable, many are aware that he's actually a very kind man inside. But that's exactly why we won't ever work out. I am more interested in men who are reckless, someone who is uncontrollable, like that of a wild beast. Is that so? Tianyang responded nonchalantly. Ren Xia narrowed her eyes at him, seemingly in deep thought. C1388 The Technique's Name. Chapter 1388 The Technique's Name. 1388 The Technique's Name. Half a month passed in the blink of an eye since Kulis started studying the stone tablet. Ren Xia also stopped bothering Tianyang and tried to comprehend the stone tablet. Even though she wasn't a body refiner, it would still benefit her greatly if she learned the technique. Tianyang spent a week solidifying his cultivation and started studying the stone tablet as well. And it only took a week for him to learn the name of the technique engraved in the stone tablet. Golden Mountain Body Refinement. As much as he wanted to continue learning the technique, he didn't want to steal it from Kulis, so he stopped studying the stone tablet after learning its name and returned to solidifying his cultivation. In the third week, Kulis finally learned the technique's name, but he only expressed disappointment afterward. This isn't the technique I am looking for. Let's head to the next one, he said to them through divine sense. In case you forgot, I won't give you the information for free. Ren Xia reminded him. Kulis glared at her and sighed. What do you want from me? A profound smile appeared on her face as she spoke. I want information on your friend. Tell me his real name, and I will give you the location of the second stone tablet. You fucking bitch. You want me to sell out my friend? In your dreams. Kulis was immediately enraged by Ren Xia's demands. Why are you so angry? It's just a name. Ren Xia calmly shook her head. Regardless, you already know his name, so why even bother asking? Stop taking me for a fool, Kulis. I know Xiaoyang is not his real name. If you are worried that I will sell him out to the Immortal Gu clan, you need not worry, as I don't particularly like them either. And you expect me to believe you? Since Kulis and Ren Xia were talking to each other through divine sense, Tianyang did not know what they were talking about, but he could tell that Kulis was in a tough situation judging by the expression on his face. What kind of payment does she want? He decided to ask Kulis. She wants me to tell her your real name. Tianyang pondered for a moment before speaking. Go ahead, tell her. Are you sure? What if she sells you out to the Immortal Qi clan? Or the 7 Divine Sword Peaks? It's fine. They will learn of my identity sooner or later. I understand. After receiving his permission, Cullis revealed Tianyang's real name to Ren Xia, who wore a bright smile on her face afterward. Tianyang, huh? Cute name. Ren Xia spoke to Tianyang in a teasing tone. The next location. Tianyang glared at her. Of course. Ren Xia proceeded to guide them to the next location, which took 3 days of traveling on their flying treasure. The second location also had a stone tablet, but this one was slightly smaller than the last. Cullis immediately took a seat and started studying the stone tablet. Tianyang and Ren Xia did the same, but Tianyang stopped after learning its name 4 days later, and focused on his cultivation. 2 weeks later, Cullis learned its name, and was met with disappointment again. What do you want as payment this time? Cullis looked at Ren Xia. In response to his question, Ren Xia retrieved a scroll from her spatial ring, and handed it to him with a calm smile on her face. I just need you to sign this. Cullis took the scroll and read it. Tianyang could read some of the contents from his position, and couldn't help but take a peek. Agreement to dissolve engagement. She wants to break their engagement. Tianyang swallowed nervously after realizing the situation. He glanced at Cullis' face with curiosity, and to Tianyang's surprise, Cullis was grinning from ear to ear. And without any hesitation, Cullis signed the paper with his blood. He wasn't joking about not wanting to marry her. Tianyang thought to himself. Cullis returned the paper to her a moment later and stated, just so you know, even though I signed this paper, the ultimate decision rests with our family. This is good enough. Ren Xia said. After putting away the scroll, Ren Xia retrieved her flying treasure, and led them to the final location. Just a reminder that this will be the last location that I know of. Ren Xia remarked. Okay. A few days later, they reached the third location, where a colossal statue featuring an animal resembling an elephant stood majestically. Whoa! Tianyang couldn't help but express his awe for the statue. This might be it. Cullis' entire being trembled in excitement when he saw the statue. He hastened towards the statue and began studying it intently. In contrast to the prior trials, the number of people examining this statue was several times greater, surpassing even the crowd at the stone sword. 1 week. 2 weeks. A month elapsed in the blink of an eye. However, Cullis remained unable to learn the name of the technique. Please give me a little more time. I think this is the technique I have been looking for. Cullis looked at Tianyang. Take as much time as you need, he replied. Thank you. 2 more months passed. It had been 3 months since they arrived at the stone statue, but Cullis was unable to comprehend the name, let alone the technique. Fuck. Cullis cursed inwardly with a defeated look on his face. He knew it wasn't going to be easy, but he couldn't have expected to be so powerless before it. Is this my limit? Am I not fated to learn this technique? Damn it all. He cursed inwardly as he looked at the sky with a disheartened expression. Eventually he gave up and said, I'm done here. Is this not the technique you were looking for? Tianyang asked him as he seemed so sure of it at the beginning. I don't know since I can't even learn its name, he sighed. After a moment of silence, Tianyang spoke. The technique is called Great Mammoth Body Refinement. Is this the technique? What? Cullis was so shocked when Tianyang revealed the technique's name that he expressed it out loud, disturbing the scene. C1389 Great Mammoth Body Refinement. Chapter 1389 Great Mammoth Body Refinement 1389 Great Mammoth Body Refinement. Hey! Which son of a bitch shouted just now? Are you looking for a fight? Fuck. I swear I was on the verge of understanding the technique's name. Cullis' loud voice quickly caused a commotion with many people expressing their desire to fight him because of it. However, when they realized that their opponent was the young master of the Immortal Might clan, their attitude took a 180 turn. They closed their mouths and returned to studying the stone statue, acting as though nothing had happened. My apologies, everyone. It will not happen again. Cullis did not forget to apologize to these people. Once the place calmed down again, and everyone returned to studying the stone statue, Kulis looked at Tianyang and asked him through divine sense, "Did you say the technique's name was Great Mammoth Body Refinement? Please tell me you're not messing with me. How would I know the technique's name if I'm toying with you? It's definitely Great Mammoth Body Refinement." Tianyang confirmed. "But how? How? I don't know how to explain it, but I studied the stone statue until I learned the technique's name. Of course, I stopped immediately afterward since I didn't want to take it away from you." Kulis swallowed nervously before asking him, "And how long did it take you to learn the name?" "I learned it on the 17th day," he calmly responded. "It only took you a little over 2 weeks to comprehend the name?" Kulis was speechless, as he was unable to do such a thing even after spending 3 entire months trying. "Anyways, judging by your reaction, this is the technique you have been looking for, correct?" Tianyang asked. He nodded. "Yes, this is the technique. Unfortunately, I am not fated to learn it." Tianyang looked at the stone statue with a pondering face. After a moment of silence, he said, "What if I try to learn the technique and pass it down to you afterward? Of course, I cannot guarantee that I have what it takes to. Will you really do that for me?" Kulis was so excited by Tianyang's words that he accidentally spoke out loud again, followed by hundreds of angry gazes. Sorry. I will leave this place now." Kulis left the area before anyone could utter a word, feeling quite embarrassed by his uncontrollable outbursts. Once he was far away, Kulis continued speaking with Tianyang through divine sense. "If you can really help me acquire the technique, I will give you my life." Tianyang smiled and calmly responded, "There's no need for such a thing, and you have already helped me enough. I'm not sure how long it will take for me to learn this technique, but I will start right now. Take as much time as you need." Sometime later, Ren Xia asked Kulis, "Have you given up already?" "Yes," he admitted. "Then what about Tianyang?" He suddenly started to study the stone statue for real. Kulis explained the situation to her. "I do not have what it takes to learn this technique, but he might have a chance. If he successfully learns the technique, he will teach it to me, so I'll be staying here a little longer. You can leave whenever you want though." Ren Xia's eyes widened after learning of the situation, and she turned to look at Tianyang with a pondering expression on her face. Time passed quickly, and in the blink of an eye, it had been 2 months since Tianyang started studying the stone statue seriously. On the 69th day, the stone statue, which had remained unchanged for an unknown duration, suddenly began exhibiting cracks throughout its massive body. Then, before everyone's shocked gaze, the stone statue crumbled into a mountain of rubble. Kulis stood up with a look of disbelief on his face as he mumbled in a dazed voice, "He really did it." Once people started snapping out of their daze, they immediately began looking for the person who comprehended the technique. "Who is it? Who learned the technique? Can you share the name of the technique? I would like to purchase the technique. I have an offer that you will not be able to refuse." However, since Tianyang did not enter enlightenment or display anything that would prove he learned the technique, nobody there except Kulis and Ren Xia knew that fact. "Tianyang, please tell me you were the one who learned the technique." Kulis spoke in a desperate tone. Tianyang didn't respond to him with words but with a silent and calm smile. Seeing this, Kulis immediately felt elevated, as though he was in heaven. After sneaking out of the crowd, Tianyang and his group quickly disappeared without being noticed. Sometime later, Tianyang and his group settled in a secluded area where they were the only living beings in a 1,000-mile radius. "I have the technique, but I don't know how to teach it to you. Do you have any technique that will allow me to transfer my knowledge to you?" Tianyang asked Kulis. "Actually, I do. It's called Technique Transmission, and I have the manual right here." Kulis retrieved a scroll and handed it to him without hesitation. "Okay, let me learn this technique first then." Tianyang proceeded to spend the next several hours learning the technique. Once he was prepared, he used Technique Transmission on Kulis, transferring the technique of Great Mammoth Body Refinement to Kulis. Upon confirming that he had indeed received the correct technique, Kulis kowtowed before Tianyang and exclaimed with sincerity, "Starting from this moment, we will be sworn brothers. Will you accept me as your sworn brother?" Tianyang chuckled and said, "Why bother asking when you have already decided that we'll be sworn brothers, just like when you decided that we'll be friends? Stand up, brother Kulis." Thank you, Brother Tian. Unbelievable. Ren Xia was speechless. If forming a friendship with Kulis seemed improbable, being acknowledged as sworn brothers with him was nothing short of a miracle. Yet, Tianyang, someone who was not from any influential background, was able to achieve such a feat. C1390 Han Zexian's Legacy. Chapter 1390 Han Zexian's Legacy. 1390 Han Zexian's Legacy. After learning the technique, Kulis immediately sat down to cultivate. Give me a few days, he said before closing his eyes and meditating. While they waited for him, Ren Xia suddenly spoke to Tianyang through divine sense. Hey, there's something I'd like to talk to you about. What is it? Tianyang looked at her. There's this technique that I really want to learn, but I only managed to learn its name. Do you think you can try learning it for me? Of course, I will compensate you properly. I don't mind. To Ren Xia's surprise, Tianyang agreed to help her without any trouble. In Tianyang's mind, he wasn't losing out on anything since he would get paid to learn a new technique. Thank you. It's only 2 days from here. You can thank me after I learn the technique since it's not guaranteed that I will learn it. Tianyang notified Kulis about their plans before leaving the scene with Ren Xia. 2 days later, they arrived at another stone sword. The name of this technique is Ethereal Blossom Sword Dance. Ren Xia said to him, as it might help him understand the technique a little faster. Tianyang nodded and started studying the stone sword shortly after. 2 weeks later, the stone sword collapsed, signifying that someone had successfully learned its technique. Ren Xia's body trembled with delight when she saw this. As they made their way back to Kulis, Tianyang transferred the technique to Ren Xia. What do you want for payment? If there's anything you want, I will try to acquire it, said Ren Xia. Tianyang pondered for a moment before responding. Does any kind of payment work? What if I want you to do me a favor? That is fine too. Then can I save this payout for a later date when I need to use it? I cannot think of anything right now. Ren Xia reached for her spatial ring and retrieved a badge from it, handing it to Tianyang the next moment. This is my medallion. You can keep it until you can think of something. Thanks. I should be the one thanking you. Ren Xia showed him a beautiful smile, one that felt natural and genuine. When they returned to Kulis, he was still in mediation. As they got closer, they could sense Kulis' aura more clearly, and it was incomparably stronger than before. Kulis opened his eyes when they landed, greeting them with a smile. Welcome back. How do you like the technique? Tianyang asked him. I couldn't have asked for anything better. This technique suits my physique perfectly, as if it was created for me. He turned to look at Ren Xia and asked, So, what kind of technique did you smooch off my brother? Ren Xia frowned at his choice of words and sneered. Unlike a certain someone, I am going to pay for my technique with something that's actually of value. That's natural. You're just an annoying bitch leeching off him while I am his sworn brother. 2 of them started arguing with each other at that point. Sometime later, Tianyang asked, What should we do now? I don't need anything else from this place, so it's up to you, said Kulis. I will have to regroup with my family soon, so I have to leave. Ren Xia sighed. I would like to learn more sword techniques, but I am also interested in the other trials. Unfortunately, we don't have a map of this place. Hearing his words, Ren Xia retrieved a piece of jade slip from her spatial ring and handed it to him. This is an interactive map of this place, so it's constantly being updated with new information. Everyone from the Immortal clans has one. Expect this useless idiot over here, who came to this place alone. Ren Xia said as she glanced at Kulis. Oh, in that case you don't need to give me yours, since I have Gu Limp's spatial ring. He looked inside and sure enough, there was the jade slip. This is very helpful. Thank you. Tianyang was delighted after seeing the information within the jade slip. Their biggest headache was instantly solved by it. Wait a minute. You have Gu Limp's spatial ring? You know his family is tracking his location, right? Ren Xia said, wondering how the Immortal Gu clan hadn't tracked him yet. You don't have to worry about that since I got rid of the tracker long ago, Kulis said in a prideful tone. As a young master from the Immortal clans, he knew the way their families operated, and that Gu Lim would have a tracker on him. Is that so? Over the next several months, Tianyang followed the map in the Jade slip and learned as many sword techniques as he could. Ren Xia continued to follow them until she had to leave a few weeks into their journey. While Tianyang learned sword techniques, Kula spent his time mastering the Great Mammoth Body Refinement technique. Once Tianyang was satisfied with the techniques he'd learned, he started training them on magical beasts. Even though everyone in the tomb was limited to peak Spirit King, there were magical beasts at the Spirit Emperor level. However, Tianyang had Gu Lim's treasures and learned several powerful techniques, allowing him to fight even early-level Spirit Emperor magical beasts with ease. In the blink of an eye, another year passed. During this time, Tianyang completely solidified his cultivation and increased his proficiency with his new techniques. If he were to encounter the gold and money bandits in his current state, he would be able to wipe them out with little to no effort. Kulis managed to increase his body size through the Great Mammoth Body Refinement technique, allowing him to grow several sizes larger, but his most impressive improvement was his raw strength. Furthermore, news of Han Zexian's legacy being found had spread like wildfire, but it was sealed behind an indestructible door and nobody has been able to figure out how to open it. Chapter 1391 Han Zexian's Legacy 2. Chapter 1391 Han Zexian's Legacy 2. 1391 Han Zexian's Legacy 2. Hey brother Tian, want to check out Han Zexian's legacy? Kula suddenly suggested one day during their training. Tianyang raised an eyebrow and said, that place is most likely crawling with people from the immortal clans. We don't have to look at it closely. We'll only be going there to look at the sealed entrance, you know? As far as I know, nobody has been able to open it. We are only a few hours away from it, so we might as well go take a look. If you say so. Tianyang nodded. Kulis retrieved his flying treasure, and they set out toward Han Zexian's legacy, following the directions provided by the Jade slip. They stopped moving a few hours later when they encountered a massive mountain standing majestically in the middle of an empty plain. This mountain was so incredibly conspicuous that it could be spotted from miles away. Yet it wasn't found by anyone until a year ago. However, those who have been to this specific area before swore that the mountain did not exist when they passed through this area over a year ago. Many speculated that the mountain had appeared after a specific condition had been met, but that condition remains unknown to this day. A large group of people were gathered at the base of this mountain, all of them surrounding a massive sealed door. This door seemed to be made from some sort of metal, and its color was pitch black, as dark as the void. Suddenly, a dozen of these people flew into the air and started bombarding the mountain with powerful martial techniques, causing the entire place to shake. The identities of the people in this group consisted of renowned experts from powerful families and sects, all of them having an immortal cultivation base outside the tomb. Yet, no matter how much they attacked the mountain, they were unable to leave behind a scratch on the mountain, let alone destroy it. These experts stopped attacking after consuming all of their spiritual energy, and rested for a few hours. Once they restored enough spiritual energy, they started bombarding the mountain again, using powerful treasures this time. How long have they been doing this? Tianyang couldn't help but wonder out loud. Kulis shrugged. Who knows, but knowing their stubborn nature, they've probably been at it for a long time now. Hey, look over there. That annoying woman is there as well. Kulis pointed at the conspicuous beautiful young lady in the crowd. Even in a sea of people, Ren Xia stood out like the mountain in front of her. She looks bored. Tianyang smiled. Suddenly, Tianyang heard a familiar voice inside his head. You, who was qualified to find my legacy, approach the mountain. Han Zexian's voice resounded, beckoning him to seek the legacy. Tianyang swallowed nervously. Even if he wanted to approach the mountain, he couldn't do so without being noticed by the immortal clans. The immortal Gu clan must be aware of Gu Lim's death by now. If I go there in my current appearance, they will, without a doubt, recognize me. Unfortunately, he used up all of his appearance reforming pills long ago. He turned to look at Kulis, who was his last hope, and asked, do you happen to have any appearance reforming pills on you? Nope, I have never even touched one in my life. Kulis immediately shook his head. Why? Do you want to hide your face and take a closer look at the mountain? Well, Zexian just spoke to me in my head, and he wants me to approach the mountain. What? If that's true, you might be the key to opening the sealed doors. That won't matter if I cannot even get close to it. Tianyang sighed. Kulis looked at the crowd again and said, the Immortal Qi clan is by the entrance, so it'll be impossible for you to get close without being noticed by them. Tianyang then said, even if I somehow manage to hide my face, having you by my side will still give my identity away. Forget it. We can come back later when the immortal clans give up. That will probably take years. What if someone else takes the legacy before then? Kulis said with a bittersweet smile. I'll take my chances. Let's return to training, Tianyang said. If you say so. However, just as Kulis turned around and sped away, an invisible force stopped the flying treasure from moving. What's going on? Kulis was puzzled when the flying treasure came to an abrupt halt, and it was not as if it had run out of spiritual energy. Did something happen? The flying treasure, Before Kulis could even finish his sentence, the invisible force pulled it, sending it flying toward the mountain. What in heaven's name? The flying treasure crashed into the mountain a moment later, and Tianyang and Kulis were knocked off it, falling to the ground and landing directly in front of the sealed doors. Who dares? The immortal clans were startled by their sudden and rough entrance. The experts there immediately released their pressure as a precaution. Deviant. It's me. Kulis raised his hands and said. Aren't you Kulis from the Immortal Might clan? What are you doing here? The people there quickly recognized him. However, their focus on Kulis was short-lived, as these experts quickly noticed that the sealed doors, which had remained closed for the past year regardless of their efforts, had inexplicably opened. The experts were so shocked by this phenomenon that they didn't even bother giving Tianyang a single glance and rushed to the doors. The door to Han Zexian's legacy has been opened. The experts announced with excitement as they entered the door. However, the moment the first person to enter the door took a step inside, his entire body exploded into a bloody mess, terrifying the others behind him. Sect Master Chung. Oh my heavens! What happened? Suddenly, Han Zexian's voice resonated loudly, his anger reverberating through the surroundings. Those who lack the qualifications yet dare to seek my legacy will be met with a swift death. C1392 Consequences. Chapter 1392 Consequences. 1392 Consequences. After Han Zexian's warning, the experts who were prepared to enter the mountain immediately jumped back, distancing themselves from the open doors that were smeared with blood. Sect Master Chung, who was a silver immortal, was instantly killed without any warnings. Seeing such a shocking scene, nobody else dared to enter the mountain. Fuck if I had been first to enter. The experts that were following behind Sect Master Chung began sweating profusely, as they imagined themselves dying an explosive death. This must have been a trap. The door wouldn't open no matter what we did, yet it suddenly opened out of the blue. I don't believe in such coincidences. But we cannot ignore the qualification that Han Zexian spoke of. How does one even receive qualification? The experts racked their brains trying to find an answer. However, none of them could think of any logical explanation for their current situation. Suddenly, one of them turned to look at Kulis with narrowed eyes. Now that I think about it, the door unsealed itself when Kulis smacked into the mountain with his flying treasure. Do you think he activated a switch by accident? We've been smacking the damn mountain non-stop for the past few months, leaving no spot untouched. Are you telling me that we somehow missed a spot? That's highly improbable. Why did you even smash into the mountain in the first place, Kulis? One of them asked. Honestly, I have no idea. I was passing through this area when an invisible force stopped my flying treasure, and before I knew it, I was flying into the mountain. Kulis shrugged. Hearing this, the experts started mumbling to each other again. Sometime later, someone in the crowd suddenly shouted, P. Patriarch Gu. That person beside Kulis. It's him. He's the one who killed young Master Gu Lim. What? Are you sure? One of the experts snapped his head to glare at Tianyang with immense killing intent spewing out of his eyes. Oh shit. Tianyang swallowed nervously when he realized that had been identified as Gu Lim's killer. This bastard. If I had known he was Gulim's killer, I would have killed him at that time. Another expert suddenly exclaimed as he pointed at Tianyang. This person was the sect master of the 7 divine sword peaks, who wanted to acquire the technique Limitless sword domain from Tianyang. Coolest. Why are you with the man who killed Gulim? A middle-aged man who resembled him stepped forward with a deep frown on his face. Young Master Coolest was also there when that man killed young Master Gulim. In fact, they were fighting each other before it happened. Another person suddenly revealed. What? Coolest, is this true? Are you involved with Gulim's death? His father was enraged when he heard this. Coolest found himself bombarded with questions, compounded by the various pressures bearing down on him. Even if he desired to respond, he couldn't muster the ability to open his mouth in such a situation. However, Tianyang was different, and he managed to keep a calm expression on his face even in his situation. Indeed, I am responsible for killing Gulim, Tianyang announced in a somewhat prideful tone. While it's true that Coolest was fighting with Gulim before I killed him, he had no intention of actually harming Gulim. It was solely my decision to kill Gulim, who mocked me. Brother Tian, what are you doing? Coolest looked at him with wide eyes as he spoke through divine sense. What do you mean? I already said that I would claim all responsibilities. Don't even try to protect me, or I will never call you brother again. Tianyang showed a calm smile on his face. How dare you speak of killing my son with a smile on your face? I will fucking kill you. Patriarch Gu roared in anger as he abruptly charged at Tianyang. Under normal circumstances, Tianyang wouldn't stand a chance against the Patriarch of an immortal clan, but with Patriarch Gu's cultivation limited to Peak Spirit King, Tianyang managed to not only dodge the strike but even counterattack. Limitless sword domain. 10 majestic swords materialized around Tianyang, and immediately went after Patriarch Gu. After training the technique tirelessly for an entire year, he managed to increase the number of swords he could create from 4 to 10. Patriarch Gu didn't dare to underestimate the technique after sensing its formidable aura, but he still failed to block all 10 swords. After blocking 9 swords, one of them managed to slip through his defenses, severing half of his left arm. Fuck. You little shit. Patriarch Gu's aura exploded and his eyes turned red. However, even after the successful attack, Tianyang was unable to rest for a second, because the sect master of the 7 divine sword peaks had launched a sneak attack from behind him. Tianyang did not try to block it, and evaded it instead. After narrowly dodging the sneak attack, Tianyang rushed toward the entrance to Han Zexian's legacy. Thank you for everything, Brother Coolest. If it weren't for you, I would have died on that day. If I manage to get out of this alive, I will definitely repay you. Tianyang mumbled as he flew past Coolest. Omicron, that bastard is heading for the entrance. He's trying to suicide. Stop him. I won't be satisfied until I personally skin him alive. Patriarch Gu shouted. However, none of the experts dared to approach the entrance, as Han Zexian's warning still resounded in their heads. Even Patriarch Gu, who was desperate, couldn't move his body out of fear. Without hesitation, Tianyang entered the entrance, disappearing inside the mountain. What? Why didn't he die? That bastard. He must have acquired the qualifications. Is that why the door suddenly opened? He was the cause this whole time. A moment later, Tianyang's voice resounded from inside the mountain. Come chase after me if you dare. You fucking losers. Fuck the immortal clans. Fuck the 7 divine sword peaks. I will acquire Han Zexian's legacy and kill all of you bastards. Just you bastards wait. Tianyang's words left the experts enraged, but before they could curse back, the door to the mountain sealed shut again, cutting his connection with the rest of the world. I swear upon my surname that I will not let you leave this place alive. Patriarch Gu roared as he punched the sealed door so hard that he broke his knuckles. Sometime later, once the atmosphere calmed down a little, the experts turned to look at Coolest with deep frowns on their faces, looking as though they were staring at a scapegoat. Coolest, you will answer all of our questions if you value your life. You will tell us everything you know about that bastard and how he acquired the qualifications to enter the mountain. I will torture you for answers if I have to. Don't think your status can save you now. Hearing such words, Kulis looked at his father for help, but alas, he only received a disappointed head shake in response. Even if he was the Immortal Might clan's young master, there was nothing his father could do to help him without receiving backlash from the other clans. I'm sorry, son, but we cannot afford to offend everyone here. You may hate me for not protecting you, but this is a mess you created, so you will have to bear the consequences. Kulis' father decided to abandon him, so that the rest of the family wouldn't be targeted by the others. As the head of the family, he had a duty to prolong the family, even if he had to sacrifice his own son to do so. Thus, Patriarch Gu and several other experts dragged Kulis to a secluded location, where they would interrogate him using all sorts of unspeakable methods for a long time. Meanwhile, unaware of the situation outside, Tianyang walked deeper into the mountain, embraced by the surrounding darkness. Soon, a dim light appeared in the distance, and as he got near the light, a childish voice resounded. Master, it's been 6 hours. The next trial will begin shortly, Tianer said, snapping Yuan out of his memories and back to the present. He stood up with a profound look on his face and said, You can start the trial now. C1393 A Truly Priceless Treasure. Chapter 1393 A Truly Priceless Treasure 1393 A Truly Priceless Treasure. As the second trial commenced, Yuan found himself teleported to a vast, empty land. There was nothing in sight except for a treeline that surrounded him several miles away, with nothing between him and the trees. Tier 1, 0 out of 100. Tier 2, 0/1000. Tier 3, 0/10000. Tier 4, 0/100,000. Tier 5, 0/1000000. Yuan's eyes widened with shock when he saw how many opponents he needed to defeat for the Tier 5 reward. 1,000,000. In just 6 hours. He expressed his disbelief out loud. The very next moment he could see thousands of figures coming out of the treeline, and they charged at him like a horde of monsters. When Yuan saw the appearance of these people, he immediately frowned, and his aura gushed with killing intent. These individuals bore the unmistakable appearance of bandits. They were none other than the Gold and Money Bandits, a group that he despised to the very core of his soul. Each of these bandits emitted the cultivation of a divine warrior, from the first level all the way to the peak of divine warrior. Yuan took a deep breath and flew into the air, stopping only when he was right beneath the clouds. The bandits chased him into the air. Even though Yuan was surrounded by thousands of divine warrior bandits in every direction, he remained composed with a nonchalant expression on his face. After taking a deep breath, he waved his sleeves and used a sword technique that had recently remembered. Limitless Sword Domain. In the blink of an eye, 2,000 swords materialized in the air, covering the entire sky. Even Zexian was only able to create several hundred swords at his peak as a golden immortal. Yet, Yuan had managed to create twice as many while only being a spirit king. Furthermore, each of his swords was imbued with enhanced sword aura, so they were also incomparably much stronger. Limitless Sword First Domain, Endless Sword Stream. The 2,000 swords began to dance in the sky, attacking the bandits relentlessly. Tier 3, 1, 230/10000. In just a few seconds, Yuan effortlessly slaughtered over 1,000 bandits, and as he defeated a bandit, another one would appear from the treeline. So he had an endless supply of bandits to experience his wrath. Tier 4, 19/213/100,000. Tier 4, 39/716/100,000. Tier 4, 69/532/100,000. Tier 5, 101/987/1,000,000. Yuan had reached the last tier of rewards in only 20 minutes. Achieving it much quicker than had expected. I will complete the trial in a little over 3 hours at this rate. The Limitless Sword Domain is much stronger than I anticipated. Although it consumes a tremendous amount of spiritual energy, I have no problem keeping it up for 3 hours. Limitless Sword Domain Rank, Mythic, Mastery, Level 1 Description. Consumes 25,000 Qi per second for every sword created using this technique. Overwhelm your enemies with sheer numbers and unfathomable strength. Increase the damage of each sword by 1% for every sword active. If it weren't for Yuan's monstrous cultivation speed, he wouldn't have been able to maintain the technique for more than just a few minutes. Of course, this doesn't mean Yuan was stronger than someone at the Golden Immortal Realm. One's understanding of the sword also contributed to the number of swords they could create using Limitless sword domain, and Yuan's sword mastery simply outclassed Han Zexian. And while Yuan's spiritual energy capacity may be nowhere near Han Zexian's capacity as a Golden Immortal, his cultivation speed made up for the disparity, as long as he didn't create too many swords at once. As long as he doesn't control over 2,000 swords at once, he would have no problem maintaining the technique for an eternity. A little over 3 hours later, the green scenery turned into that of a horror scene where countless corpses piled as high as mountains with the bottom submerged in a sea of blood. Tier 5, 999-999/1-000-000. After killing the 999,999th bandit, the atmosphere became quiet as no more bandits spawned. However, a threatening presence appeared a moment later, and a single figure emerged from the sea of blood. This person looked exactly like the Gold and Money Bandits leader, and he had the cultivation of a third-level divine master. Yuan glanced at the bandit leader with a disdainful look on his face. He raised his hand toward the heavens and muttered in a cold voice, "Limitless sword, second domain, descending sword god." The 2,000 swords suddenly merged into a giant sword. When Yuan struck his hand down in the bandit leader's direction, the giant sword descended from the sky with unfathomable pressure and prowess. Seeing this, the bandit leader released all of his cultivation and swung at the incoming sword, creating a powerful blade made of saber aura. However, since the giant sword was strengthened with enhanced sword aura, the bandit leader's saber aura was powerless against it and shattered like thin ice. The giant sword crushed the bandit leader's figure the very next second, leaving nothing behind. 2. An orb of light appeared in front of Yuan a moment later. This orb of light slowly approached Yuan, but it didn't enter his body like usual. The orb of light stopped right in front of Yuan, and began weakening its glow until it revealed the treasure hidden within. Yuan's eyes widened with shock when he saw this treasure that was a single ring. He quickly grabbed the ring and pressed it against his chest, embracing it. Huang Shaoli Spatial Ring Grade, Spirit, Description. An ordinary spatial ring owned by Huang Shaoli. Even though the reward may seem insignificant and pointless to most people, it was a priceless and irreplaceable treasure in Yuan's eyes, and he wouldn't ask for a better reward even if he could. C1394 Fourth Heaven. Chapter 1394 Fourth Heaven. 1394 Fourth Heaven. After clearing the second trial, Yuan was teleported back to Tian'er, who greeted him with a gentle smile. "Congratulations, Master. You have cleared the stairway to heaven and acquired the qualifications to enter the fourth heaven." Meanwhile, an announcement was made for the players. Established its connection with profound heaven, allowing access for all players. It's player Yuan again. He's the first one to climb the stairway to heaven again. How long has it been since we gained access to the third heaven? The majority of us are still struggling in the second heaven. He's climbing way too fast. The disparity between player Yuan and the rest of the player base has drastically widened once again. Those from the 10 great families could only grit their teeth in anger upon seeing the announcement. Meanwhile, somewhere within the ninth heaven, also known as Supreme Heaven, the Celestial Emperor stared at the screen before him. Player Yuan again, huh? What a pity that such a talent was born in that world. Who knows what he would have achieved by now if he had been born in the 9 heavens. But if you keep progressing this fast, you will ruin everything I had planned, and I won't be able to stop myself from interfering. After pondering for a moment in silence, the Celestial Emperor muttered in an authoritative tone, "Initiate system update." Confirm. A few minutes later, a notification appeared before every player online. This notification immediately caused an uproar within the player base. What? System update? This is the first time something like this has happened since the game was released. What kind of update? Why doesn't it specify? This update is happening right after player Yuan reaches the fourth heaven. This cannot be a coincidence. I cannot play for 3 whole days. What the hell am I supposed to do in the meantime? This game has consumed my life. Inside the stairway to heaven, Yuan looked at the notification with a slight frown on his face. Since he knew the true nature of, he wasn't as optimistic as the others. Then I'll see you later, Yuan said to Tian'er before leaving the stairway to heaven with the others. After leaving the stairway to heaven, Yuan and his group found themselves in the middle of nowhere once again. Yuan looked at Ximei and said, "Something urgent came up, so we will have to leave for a few days." Huh? What happened? Ximei asked. Yuan took this chance to try something out and said, "There will be a system update, so we players cannot log in for 3 days in 24 hours. Ximei had a somewhat dazed look on her face after hearing his words. Then, after a moment of silence, she calmly responded, "Don't worry, I will wait for you to finish your business. You're not going to ask about the system update, and why we have to be gone?" Yuan pressed further. "I'm sure you'll explain it to me once you are ready," Ximei said, acting very natural. "I really need to figure out a way to remove this curse." Yuan sighed inwardly. "We'll leave after we arrive at a city," he said a moment later. Before they started their journey, Yuan approached Chuliuxiang. "What's up?" she asked. Yuan retrieved Huang Xiaoli's spatial ring and offered it to her. "I want you to have this." This is? Chuliuxiang was taken aback when she was suddenly offered a ring, as it looked like Yuan was proposing to her. "This is something akin to the sword I gave Li Jinxi, as it belongs to you. Sorry, it's nothing fancy. I don't know what this is about, but thank you. I will treasure it." Chuliuxiang accepted the ring with a bright smile on her face. Meishio looked at them with a pondering expression on her face, wondering if she'd receive something as well. Sometime later, they found a city and entered it. "Then we'll see you in about 3 days," Yuan said to Ximei after renting a hotel room for her. "It'll take this time to cultivate since it's been a while." She nodded. Yuan and the others logged off shortly after. Upon returning to their own world, Yuan gathered the others to talk about the upcoming system update. "What do you think they are going to update?" Wang Ming asked. "Since it's called a system update, I think they'll readjust the system or something along that line." Lang speculated. "Whatever it is, I'm pretty confident that it has something to do with Yuan." Wang Xiaoying said as she looked at him. "There's no way it's a coincidence that this is happening right after you reach the 4th heaven." Yuan nodded. "I also think this update has something to do with me, but until we see the changes, we won't know for sure why. I am going to speak with the Lord to see if he has any opinions," he added. Sometime later, Liya showed up at his mansion to guide Yuan. "You've returned much quicker than I anticipated. Did something happen?" the Lord asked him upon his arrival. He nodded. "There's a system update for cultivation online. We don't know the details, and we won't be able to enter cultivation online for 3 days." The Lord fell silent with a pondering face. A few minutes later he spoke. "Since it's related to the system itself, it was most likely caused by the Celestial Emperor. Unfortunately, even I cannot tell you what he has planned." C1395 Two Options. Chapter 1395 Two Options. 1395 Two Options. The Celestial Emperor, huh? Yuan had a feeling that the Celestial Emperor was the culprit since he was the one who created. "It seems like I am fated to cross paths with the Celestial Emperor even in this life," he sighed inwardly. "Anyways, ignoring the update, I have reached the 4th heaven, so I will be heading to the Shadow Realm soon to find a soul to bring back." The Lord nodded and said, "Regarding the situation, I have learned some new information on why it is getting harder for me to maintain the formation." "Oh, what's causing it?" Yuan raised an eyebrow. "I should have anticipated this sooner, but unsurprisingly is the cause. When someone enters, a part of their soul travels outside the formation to reach the 9 heavens. But that's not all, since their soul has to return once they log off. With so many people entering every day, it's slowly damaging the formation. Hence why it consumes more spiritual energy than usual." The Lord explained their situation. "Unfortunately, this information doesn't change our situation since there's nothing we can do to stop these people from playing. Yuan nodded, agreeing with the Lord. Nobody would believe them even if they revealed the truth to the rest of the world. After all, who would believe that a video game would result in 17:44 after all? Who would believe that a video game would result in the end of the world? Meanwhile, somewhere within the upper area of the Dragon Spiral Mountain, Xionglu stood with his hands behind his back as he nervously stared at the cold-looking middle-aged man seated in front of him. The middle-aged man was Xiong Chengxian, the head of the Xiong family and also Xionglu's father. Xiong Chengxian placed the report in his hands down and looked at Xionglu with a cold and disappointed gaze. So you mean to tell me, not only did you fail to befriend player Yuan, who is arguably the most powerful individual but you even offended him and waged war against him? Bam! Xiong Chengxian slammed the table so hard that it split into two halves. Are you out of your fucking mind? He roared, causing the air to tremble. Xionglu was shocked by his father's reaction. Why are you so upset, father? He may be powerful, but he's just a single person without any backing. He's a nobody in the real world. A nobody? Are you seriously saying that? Xiong Chengxian narrowed his eyes. Seeing his father's response made Xionglu ponder if Yuan had a secret background that he didn't know of. He's just the adopted son of a fallen family. Even that family isn't much during its prime days. Xiong Chengxian shook his head and sighed. I didn't know I had given birth to such a dumb son. You disappoint me, Xionglu. What? Stupid? Me? Xionglu's expression froze with shock, as this was his first time being insulted in such a manner by his father. Look around you, the current situation of our world. This world is no longer the same as it was a year ago. Cultivation Online is no longer just a video game. The treasures and techniques we acquire in Cultivation Online will also affect this world. Those who continue to see Cultivation Online as a mere video game will be left behind by the rest of the rapidly evolving world. As the cultivation scene in our world continues to advance, the power balance in our world will also evolve. In the future, influence and power will held to a different standard, and those who are at the top of the cultivator world will undoubtedly monetize it all, just like Cultivation Online. In fact, we are already starting to see such a change. The legacy families are slowly losing power and influence to these guilds and clans that focus on cultivation. Why do you think everyone is desperately trying to increase their cultivation and acquire cultivation techniques nowadays? Because it's entertaining? Because it's something new? No. It's because their future depends on it. This is. Xionglu was left speechless by his father's view of the situation of the world. He realized that the world was changing, but he was short-sighted and failed to see the bigger picture. Ding. Xiong Chengshuan's cell phone suddenly pinged, catching his attention. Player Yuan has just reached the fourth heaven. Xiong Chengxian announced what he had just seen on his phone. What? Xionglu expressed his shock upon learning of this information. Xiong Chengxian looked at him and continued, while the rest of the world is still struggling in the first and second heavens, player Yuan, all by himself, reached the fourth heaven. His access to treasures and techniques is incomparably better than the rest of us. Furthermore, this gap between him and the rest of the world will only continue to widen. You say that player Yuan has no backing, yet he's clearly on friendly terms with the Bai family, and he's closely being watched by the Cultivators Association, which is rapidly growing in power and influence. It's only a matter of time before player Yuan becomes the most powerful individual in this world as well. Now tell me, Xionglu, do you regret your actions? Xiong Chengxian asked. After a moment of silence, Xionglu nodded his head. Omicron him, then you will fix this problem you caused. If you cannot befriend him, then you can only crush him before he grows too powerful and becomes a problem for our family in the future. Xiong Chengxian said in a cold voice. What? Xionglu's eyes widened with shock after hearing such words. He didn't think his father would suggest crushing Yuan after praising him so much. However, it did make sense. If a wild dog cannot be tamed before it becomes too powerful to control, they can only get rid of that dog before its bite becomes too dangerous. It just so happens that player Yuan is currently living in the Dragon Spiral Mountain, so you can visit him right away. Although I did give you two options, I suggest you try the first option before opting for the second one. Xiong Chengxian said a moment later. Yes, Xiong Lu replied with a resolute face. C1396 Deviant Bloods. Chapter 1396 Deviant Bloods. 1396 Deviant Bloods. After receiving his father's orders, Xiong Lu left to ponder about his decision. Fuck, what should I do now? Due to his immense pride, Xiong Lu found it incredibly difficult to forgive Yuan, who spat in his face, as well as ruining his image and damaging his reputation before his colleagues. Xiong Lu was someone who did not know defeat, and stood above the majority of people in the world ever since birth. He always dominated every ranking of every game that he's ever touched, and he was always in the spotlight. However, things have changed since the introduction of the most popular game in history by far. Due to its popularity and exciting gameplay, Xiong Lu had never felt a stronger desire to dominate everyone else. Unfortunately, due to the appearance of player Yuan, someone nobody knew about, his presence within might as well be non-existent. No matter what he did or how much money he spent on the game, he could not seem to catch up to player Yuan, who was achieving seemingly impossible feats left and right as though it was normal gameplay. This caused Xiong Lu to fall into depression for some time, until he met Jiahui, an exile, who pulled him out of the darkness and gave him a chance to catch up to Yuan. Things got better from that point. He acquired powerful treasures and techniques that even he couldn't purchase with money, and his cultivation soared with the guidance of Jiahui, who claimed to be an immortal cultivator. Everything looked great for Xiong Lu, until Yuan showed up with an even stronger exile, slaughtering Jiahui, his only hope of surpassing Yuan. It was at this point that Xiong Lu vowed to completely and utterly destroy Yuan, no matter the cost. Thus, he cooked up a plan to destroy Yuan with the help of his colleagues. After gathering hundreds of exiles, Xiong Lu was confident that he would finally be able to deal with Yuan, but as though fate was purposefully messing with him. Not only did he fail to destroy Yuan, but he suffered an embarrassing defeat at the hands of Yuan, even dying for the first time. After recalling everything that Yuan had done to him, the anger dormant within him awakened, spewing forth like a volcanic eruption. You want me to lower my head and act like nothing happened? Never. I'd rather die than lower myself to that bastard who took everything from me. Xiong Lu clenched his fists and gritted his teeth, his eyes filled with resolution. He immediately retrieved his phone and started dialing a certain number. A voice answered after a few rings. What do you want? I want your strongest fighters. All of them. We have one who recently entered Spirit Master and 8 peak Spirit Warriors. What kind of job is this? The kind that makes someone disappear. Xiong Lu responded in a cold voice. After a brief moment of silence, the voice returned. Very well. Who's the target? Well, calculate the price based on the difficulty. Player Yuan, also known as Yuan. The person behind the phone was left terrified after hearing Yuan's name. You want us to assassinate Yuan? Fuck. Do you not remember what happened to the young master of the Zheng family after he hired a hit on Yuan? He was annihilated, along with the group that accepted the job. This is suicide. You might as well ask us to kill ourselves. Only a few people know of the truth behind Zheng Weimin's disappearance to this day. Xiong Lu sneered. Zheng Weimin failed because he hired a bunch of useless trash. Are you telling me that the Deviant Bloods are comparing themselves to such nobodies? After a moment of silence, the person said, We don't have any intel on Yuan ever since he entered the Dragon Spiral Mountain. However, we do have some intel on those living with him. The people staying with him are from families that used to live in seclusion, only revealing themselves recently. There are also rumors that these families already knew the existence of cultivation, and had been cultivating years before Cultivation Online's creation. So what? Xiong Lu sneered. Just this knowledge alone will increase the difficulty to the max. We don't know our opponent's prowess, and with what happened to Zheng Weimin, I do not think the others will accept this mission. A blank check. Xiong Lu suddenly interrupted. Excuse me? The voice sounded dumbfounded. I will give a blank check to anyone that dares to go after Yuan. Tell them that, and call me once you have an answer. Xiong Lu hung up without waiting for a response. To give a blank check was essentially to give the workers as much money as they wanted, which could easily go south, especially with money-hungry assassins. But Xiong Lu was prepared to spend millions, even billions of dollars if he could get rid of Yuan. While he waited for the call back from the Deviant Bloods, an extremely dangerous and ruthless group of elite assassins, Xiong Lu decided to take a look at Yuan's residence. Omicron M, however, not even 2 minutes after he left his house and started making his way down the mountain, Xiong Lu noticed a group of individuals quickly approaching from behind. He turned around to see a group of young men and women walking down the mountain in ragged clothes, looking worse than even beggars. They also appeared to be injured with bruises all over their body. However, as a cultivator, Xiong Lu could instantly tell that this group of young men and women were actually powerful cultivators just from their formidable aura alone. To this aura, Spirit Grandmasters. Impossible. How can they already be Spirit Grandmasters when they look to be around my age? Xiong Lu was in disbelief, as he was only a spirit warrior himself after cultivating with a divine rank cultivation technique. But their aura is unmistakably that of a Spirit Grandmaster. Where did such monsters come from? How did they reach that level so quickly? Moreover, where are they coming from? We are already at the top of the mountain, and my Xiong family is located closest to the peak with nobody living any closer. Xiong Lu pondered to himself, wearing a deep frown on his face. C1397 A Group of Spirit Grandmasters. Chapter 1397 A Group of Spirit Grandmasters. 1397 A Group of Spirit Grandmasters. Xiong Lu stared at the approaching group of young men and women with a look of disbelief. While he researched the people around Yuan, he only knew their names and had never seen their faces before, so he didn't know they belonged to the Demon Sealing faction. Excuse me, Xiong Lu subconsciously called out to them once they were close enough. Huh? What do you want? Wang Ming asked with a slight frown on his face, as he was in a bad mood after their tortuous training. Where are you guys coming from? I thought the Xiong family lives closest to the mountain's peak. Xiong Lu asked. We came from the peak, but why do you care? The peak. Does that mean you've met the lord of this mountain before? Xiong Lu was shocked to learn this information, as even his father had never seen the lord before. I'm too tired for this. I'll return first, Chu Liuxiang said before suddenly flying into the air and disappearing from the scene. Xiong Lu's eyes nearly popped out of their sockets. This was his first time witnessing someone fly outside of. In fact, he didn't even know it was possible. I wasn't mistaken. They are really Spirit Grandmasters. Xiong Lu cried inwardly after confirming it. If there's nothing else, we will leave, Wang Ming said a moment later. W8. Just one more question. Are you guys really Spirit Grandmasters? How did you reach that level so quickly? Although he already knew the answer, he needed to hear it from their mouths to completely believe it. So what if we are Spirit Grandmasters? And since that is 2 questions, I will only answer the first one. I will pay you, Xiong Lu suddenly blurted out. Huh? Wang Ming raised his eyebrows. If you help me reach Spirit Grandmaster as well, I will pay you $1 billion. If you think I am joking, my name is Xiong Lu, heir of the Xiong family. I will even sign a contract, Xiong Lu said, appearing quite desperate. The Xiong family? Wang Ming and the others muttered in a low voice, as if they were recalling something. A smile appeared on Xiong Lu when he saw this. If they recognized his family, it would make negotiations much easier for him. However, what came out of Wang Ming and the others' mouths a moment later left Xiong Lu in shambles. No wonder why I found you unpleasant even though we've never met before. It turned out you were Xiong Lu, the arrogant bastard who threatened to destroy Yuan. Wang Ming narrowed his eyes at Xiong Lu. To threaten one of, if not the most powerful cultivators in this world with that pathetic cultivation base, you must have a death wish. Lang chuckled. Hey, I dare you to attack us, the Demon Sealing faction. ITLL finally give me an excuse to test out my training results practically, Hong Xiuquan said. Why you're with the Demon Sealing faction? Xiong Lu felt his heart sink after learning this information. Naturally, he has heard of the Demon Sealing faction. A small yet elite faction led by none other than Yuan. Countless people have applied to the faction, but only a single individual has managed to join their ranks since their creation. However, according to his information network, everyone within the Demon Sealing faction was only at the Spirit Warrior level about a year ago. How did they manage to reach Spirit Grandmaster in such a short time? It was a speed that would be terrifying even inside cultivation online, let alone the real world. Jinxi suddenly stepped forward and glared at Xiong Lu with subtle killing intent, mumbling, "Should I just get rid of him right now to prevent future trouble?" What? Xiong Lu's entire body trembled in fear after sensing the increasingly strong murderous intent coming from Jinxi's gaze. However, he quickly recalled the rules of the mountain and exclaimed, "You wouldn't dare! Do you even know where we are? The Dragon Spiral Mountain forbids harming other tenants, and we are right in front of my family's residence. Do you not fear the Lord's wrath?" It was rumored that the Lord of the Dragon Spiral Mountain was actually a cultivator, a powerful one at that. There had been conflicts within the Dragon Spiral Mountain before, but the troublemakers all vanished without a trace shortly after. The Lord? I'm sure he would overlook the disappearance of some bastard that threatened Yuan. Wang Bingbing smiled. I would even wager the Lord dealing with you himself if he knew about it. He owes Yuan a great amount after all. Wu Zhao chuckled. Xiong Lu subconsciously stepped back after learning that Yuan had a close connection with the Lord of the Dragon Spiral Mountain. Please wait a moment. I acknowledge that I had threatened Yuan, but it was done out of sheer anger, and I don't have the intention to follow through with it. In the presence of nearly a dozen spirit grandmasters, Xiong Lu's fleeting courage, which had manifested moments ago, dissipated like wisps of smoke. Despite his earlier declaration that he would prefer death over submission, it became apparent that beneath his facade of bravado, he was but a timid soul, relying on the shield of his family's influence to feign a lofty demeanor. I swear, I will never harm Yuan. However, Wang Ming suddenly laughed out loud and said, You wouldn't be able to harm a single hair on him even if you wanted to. That guy is a monster who can treat all of us like toddlers in a fight. I advise you to give up on revenge if you value your life. Offending someone like Yuan is the worst thing one can do. Su Morong nodded. Wang Ming approached Xiong Lu and placed a hand on his shoulder, squeezing it with enough strength to send shivers throughout his body, and whispered, Even though you claim you won't do anything, I don't trust people like you, so I will be keeping an eye on you. If you think the Xiong family is untouchable, you are nothing but a frog in a well. Xiong Lu could do nothing but silently nod, his back soaked in cold sweat. C1398 Regret. Chapter 1398 Regret 1398 Regret. Actually, I was on my way to apologize to Yuan for my behavior. Xiong Lu subconsciously blurted out loud after being threatened by Wang Ming. Oh, in that case, let's get going. Wang Ming smiled as he started walking down the mountain again. Xiong Lu could only accept his fate and follow the Demon Sealing faction back to their residence. However, a few minutes later, Xiong Lu's cell phone started ringing loudly. Fuck. It must be the Deviant Bloods. Why did they have to call me back so quickly? Are they trying to get me killed? Xiong Lu cursed inwardly. The phone continued ringing, but Xiong Lu didn't dare to answer it and pretended to not even hear it. After all, he was surrounded by spirit grandmasters with incredible senses who would surely be able to hear his conversation with the Deviant Bloods from meters away. If the Demon Sealing faction were to learn that had tried hiring assassins to go after Yuan, he would surely vanish from the face of this earth before reaching Yuan's residence. Under such circumstances, Xiong Lu had no choice but to ignore the phone even if it might raise some eyebrows. Hey, aren't you going to answer it? Wang Ming asked him with raised eyebrows. It's probably just spam. It's annoying. Hurry up and pick up the phone already. Wang Bingbing shouted at him. Due to the pressure on him, Xiong Lu completely forgot that he could simply put his phone in silence. Sorry. Xiong Lu retrieved his phone and answered it. Young Master Xiong? We have come to a decision and however, Xiong Lu immediately interrupted and spoke in an angry voice. Fuck. Stop bothering me with your spam. Ha. But we are. Shut up. If you dare call me again, I will use all of the Xiong family's resources to hunt you down. Xiong Lu quickly closed his phone afterward, not letting the other party utter another word. He proceeded to show an awkward smile to the others and said, "My apologies. Because of my position within the family, there are always people contacting me with bothersome things." Of course, that was a lie. Even if people wanted to contact him for advertisements, they wouldn't have the means to find his personal phone number. Eventually, the Demon Sealing faction returned home. "You can wait out here. We'll let Yuan know of your arrival," Wang Ming said to him. "I understand." Xiong Lu nodded with an obedient smile, but deep inside, he was fuming with anger, as had never experienced such shame before. Even losing his army of exiles to Yuan wasn't as humiliating as this. Inside the manor, Yuan was notified of Xiong Lu's unexpected appearance. "Oh, Xiong Lu is here to apologize? I expected many things, but this was definitely out of my expectations." Yuan showed a look of surprise after hearing this information. Wang Ming chuckled. "He's probably acting like that because we sort of threatened him a little." Yuan smiled and said, "Anyways, I'll meet with him. Bring him to the living room. Let's make him wait a little longer. At least until we all clean up our appearance," Wang Xiuying suddenly suggested. "That's a little mean, but I am not against it." Wang Bingbing chuckled. "Imph. That's what he gets for threatening us." Chu Liuxiang sneered. Upon hearing their suggestions, Yuan nodded with a smile on his face. Once it was decided, everyone returned to their own rooms to clean themselves. Half an hour had passed since Xiong Lu was told to wait outside the manor, yet nobody returned to speak with him, almost as though they had forgotten about him entirely. Fuck. These fucking bastards. How dare they treat me like this? However, despite the mistreatment and humiliation, Xiong Lu's feet remained rooted to the ground. If he left now, he would most likely forever lose the opportunity to apologize to Yuan. Eventually, after 45 minutes since his arrival, Meifeng came outside to meet Xiong Lu, who was visibly trembling from anger. "The Demon Sealing faction is ready to meet you," Meifeng said, not even bothering to apologize for making him wait. Xiong Lu clenched his teeth and silently nodded, his forehead bulging with veins that he couldn't control nor hide. Meifeng led Xiong Lu to their living room, where Yuan and the rest of the Demon Sealing faction were assembled. Seated at a long table, an intense atmosphere permeated the room, resembling a tribunal of judges ready to pass down judgment. Xiong Lu swallowed nervously when he saw this. When he stepped into the room, he could feel the appearance of an invisible blade pressing at his neck, threatening to kill him if he misbehaved in the slightest. Yuan, who was seated the furthest away, spoke in a calm voice. "Xiong Lu, right? You seem quite different from when we met in Cultivation Online." Even though Yuan was seated, it felt as if he occupied an unattainable position, gazing down upon Xiong Lu from high above. In comparison to Cultivation Online, the intensity and pressure of Yuan's gaze were unfathomably more potent in the real world. Xiong Lu instinctively froze upon sensing this gaze, momentarily forgetting how to breathe. The terrifying pressure emanating from Yuan at this moment rivaled that of his father, if not surpassing it, resembling that of a beast with unfathomable power and deep bloodlust. Despite encountering the Demon Sealing faction and gaining insights into their real cultivation, Xiong Lu remained fixated on devising ways to destroy Yuan and those close to him. However, upon meeting Yuan in person and comprehending the true extent of the monster before him, Xiong Lu swiftly discarded such vengeful thoughts and relinquished the pursuit of revenge. Thud. Xiong Lu fell to his knees and kissed the floor with his forehead before shouting in a loud voice, "I am terribly sorry for everything I have done. I deeply regret my actions and vow to never step in your path ever again. Please forgive me." After Xiong Lu's voice stopped echoing, an eerie silence filled the room. C1399 Li Jinxi's Dreams. Chapter 1399 Li Jinxi's Dreams. 1399 Li Jinxi's Dreams. Yuan raised an eyebrow, with a somewhat surprised look on his face after witnessing Xiong Lu's exaggerated apology. However, he had no intentions of forgiving Xionglu so easily and spoke in a cold voice. Why should I accept your apology? You think you can provoke me and make it go away with an apology whenever you want. Who do you think you are? Do I look like a pushover to you? And no, of course not, Xionglu quickly said, but he couldn't think of anything else to say in this situation. After all, it was true that he had provoked Yuan out of sheer jealousy, and Yuan had no reason to trust his sincerity. What do I have to do? Xionglu asked after a moment of silence. Nothing, Yuan calmly said. Excuse me? Xionglu wore a dazed expression on his face, seemingly unable to understand the meaning behind Yuan's words. Yuan quickly responded in a calm tone. I will not accept your apology, but I will also not come after you for revenge. If you stay out of my way and don't provoke me any further, we can both continue to live our lives without any unnecessary headaches. However, the moment you try to do anything to me or those around me to get to me, I will immediately crush you and your entire family. Do I make myself clear? Xionglu did not immediately respond, as he had to take a moment to comprehend Yuan's words. He nodded a moment later, saying, You have my word. Yuan sneered. Your words are worthless to me, nor will I believe them. But as I said, I don't want any unnecessary bloodshed, so you don't have to worry about that. If you have nothing else to say, you may leave. Xionglu didn't dare to stay there any longer, fearing that Yuan might suddenly change his mind. He left the place the following moment, escorted out by Meifeng. I think you let him off the hook a little too easily, Yuan. He deserved to be punished a little more for what had done to you, Wang Ming suddenly said. A few others proceeded to chime in, agreeing with Wang Ming's view. Yuan smiled and asked, What kind of punishment should I have given him? We're not in, so it's not like I can chop his hands off for messing with me. He's just an overly prideful and reckless young brat who went a little overboard with his provocations. I don't have the energy to deal with someone as meaningless as him. Young brat? You sound like an old man. Shirlang laughed out loud. Sure enough, Yuan's mentality had matured even further after absorbing more of Tianyang's memories, perhaps a little too much. However, this was an inevitable change, and it would only get worse as he continued to recollect more memories. Yuan stood up and said to them, Get some early rest today. I will train with you guys tomorrow. I am curious how the Lord trains you all. While everyone left their seat, Jinxi remained seated for a little longer, her gaze on Yuan, looking as though she was in deep thought. Ever since Yuan handed the Golden Empress to her in Cultivation Online, Jinxi has been having weird dreams in her sleep, mostly about living as someone with a similar face and name in a world similar to Cultivation Online. Jinxi didn't initially give it much thought, considering it was common for dreams to be influenced by one's thoughts before sleep or throughout the day. She often contemplated cultivation, so such dreams were not unusual for her. Yet, as she encountered more and more of these dreams, a realization gradually dawned on her. That perhaps they were more than mere dreams. These visions were oddly specific, intricate, and realistic, almost as if she were reliving another life she had once known. Moreover, intertwined within these dreams was someone strikingly familiar. This person bore Yuan's face, yet his demeanor was cold and aloof. Despite that, the person in her dreams followed this person from the moment they first met, akin to a newborn chick following its mother. Jinxi wanted to share her experiences with Yuan, but she hesitated, wary of sounding crazy. Thus, she had been suppressing the urge for a considerable time. However, after witnessing Yuan's reaction to Xionglu today, he seemed to bear a resemblance to the man in her dreams. In the end, Jinxi refrained from approaching Yuan and returned to her room, immediately heading to bed to dream, a world that had captivated her as of late. Zexian, where are you heading to now? That's none of your business. You always seem to have a destination in mind, and it would always benefit your cultivation greatly in the end, almost as though you knew it would happen. How is that possible? Can you see the future or something? Jinxi pondered, expressing her observations after following him for decades. Zexian glanced at her and sneered. Do I look like a god to you? It's just coincidence. Coincidence? Do you think I am stupid? Every place you go just happens to have exactly what you need at that moment. If you cannot see the future, then you can control fate. You cannot convince me otherwise. Whatever you say. Zexian merely shrugged at her words, treating her as though she was just a random crazy lady. Jinxi woke up after sleeping for exactly 8 hours, but it felt like she had lived for years within her dreams. My cultivation went up again. Jinxi mumbled to herself after inspecting her body. The biggest reason why Jinxi believed her dreams were more than just ordinary dreams was because her cultivation would increase a little after every dream. Unfortunately, she could not explain the reason behind this phenomenon. There must be a reason why I am having these dreams. Hopefully, the answers will reveal themselves through the dreams. Jinxi thought to herself as she prepared for another day of training. C1400 Training with Liya. Chapter 1400 Training with Liya. 1400 Training with Liya. After the Demon Sealing faction had breakfast made by Mammoth, they made their way up the Dragon Spiral Mountain for another day of training with the Lord and Liya. However, there was an additional member today, someone who had never been to their training before. What kind of training do you guys typically do? Yuan asked them as they walked together. At first, we spent most of our time boosting our cultivation. Once we reached Spirit Grandmaster, we focused on stabilizing our cultivation. Nowadays, we spend almost all our time sparring with the manager. Sherlang said. You're sparring with Liya? Not the Lord? Yuan learned something new. Of course not. We wouldn't last a second against the Lord. The manager is really strong too. We can't defeat her even if we all went at her together. Wang Bingbing sighed. Yuan smiled. I look forward to sparring with her. Upon arriving at the peak of the mountain, Liya could be seen waiting for them right outside the formation's entrance. Her eyebrows twitched when she noticed Yuan amongst the group. She had anticipated his appearance sooner or later, but it still felt weird to see him with the others. Once they were at the true peak of the mountain, Liya immediately started their training and said, Who wants to go first? Wang Ming raised his hand. Come. Liya gestured for him to approach her. The summit of the mountain lay empty and vast, boasting a flat surface that made it an ideal arena or training ground. There were also no buildings to destroy, allowing them to unleash their full strength without worry. Once the fight began, Wang Ming immediately charged at Liya with a weapon. Meanwhile, Liya confronted him with nothing but her bare fists. Liya did not attack Wang Ming for the first few minutes, only focused on dodging and blocking his strikes. Once 5 minutes have passed without Wang Ming landing a single hit on her, Liya started pointing out Wang Ming's flaws while throwing fists at him. Unlike Wang Ming, all of Liya's strikes would land on their target without fail. Liya had the cultivation of a peak spirit lord, an impressive achievement considering her environment and lack of spiritual energy. However, her cultivation was irrelevant in this case, as she had fought Wang Ming without using any spiritual energy. Being a dragon in her true form, Liya boasted naturally high prowess, so it would be overkill if she used her cultivation on top of her innate strength. It didn't take long for Wang Ming to collapse on the floor, suffering a complete and utter defeat at the hands of Liya. Next, Liya didn't even bother taking a minute to catch her breath before calling for her next challenger. One after another, members of the Demon Sealing faction fought with Liya, who took no breaks in between each fight. Yet, she looked completely calm and relaxed, almost as if the fights weren't even enough to be considered a warm-up in her eyes. Liya purposefully gave everyone 5 minutes to fight her, yet nobody there but Jinxi could land a hit on her. However, even Jinxi could only graze Liya's skin, and it required her to use the nameless technique. Once everyone had fought Liya, she turned to look at Yuan and asked, Did you only come here to watch or do you intend on participating as well? I'd like to participate if you don't mind. Liya snickered inwardly after hearing this, as she had always wanted to give Yuan a beating, but was held back by the Lord. Yuan approached her and asked, What are the rules? You can use whatever you want. Treat this as though we are in a real fight, she quickly said. Do you need to take a minute to recover your strength? I can fight each of them a dozen times without breaking a sweat. Liya sneered. Yuan smiled and said, Still, I will give you a moment to rest. I want to fight you at your best, after all. You think you have what it takes to look down on me. I have been waiting so long for the moment to punch your face. Liya did not accept Yuan's offer and immediately charged at him. Whoa. Yuan was a little surprised by Liya's speed, which had drastically increased since her last fight. Though he wasn't too shocked. After all, he knew she had been holding back against the others. Still, he was impressed by how much Jade held back. Is this her full strength? No, it's probably only around 60%. Yuan thought to himself as he dodged her sudden attack. Liya immediately went for another strike after her first missed, then another, and another. Yuan perfectly avoided all of Liya's strikes without fighting back. The Demon Sealing faction watched their fight in awe, and it looked like Liya was the one being trained at this moment. What are you doing? Why aren't you fighting back? Are you making fun of me? Liya eventually stopped to ask with a deep frown. Of course not. I am just waiting for you to use your full strength, he said. My full strength? You want me to kill you? Liya continued to frown. Yuan patted his chest and chuckled. You don't have to worry about that since you cannot kill me. Liya gritted her teeth at his words and immediately unleashed her cultivation base, filling the area with a heavy pressure that left the others shocked. She was hiding this much strength this entire time? Shimoron cried out loud. Even though Liya knew that Yuan had purposefully provoked her so she could use her full strength, she couldn't let him mock her any longer. However, she didn't immediately charge at Yuan, almost as though she was waiting for something. After waiting for a moment without the Lord attempting to stop her, Liya showed a faint smile on her face and said, I will make you regret messing with me. She swung her fist at Yuan with about 80% of her full strength, expecting him to dodge it again. However, contrary to her expectations, Yuan extended his arm with his hand wide open, as if he intended on catching her fist. This crazy. Liya was unable to stop her fist in time and struck Yuan's palm, expecting to send him flying. However, he not only stood firm but also caught her fist, defying her expectations once again. Not bad. Now it's my turn. Yuan suddenly muttered. When Yuan raised his other arm and pulled it back, Liya instinctively jumped back, distancing herself from him. She stared at him with wide eyes afterward, her back soaked in cold sweat. How does a human like him have such monstrous strength? She cried inwardly. She instantly knew from that single exchange that Yuan was hiding an unfathomable amount of strength within his body. Yet, she couldn't comprehend how a human like him could possess innate strength that rivaled even dragons. As for Yuan, he used Liya's frightening strength to test the current condition of his body. He could sense that the golden immortal physique had transferred to his real body, albeit incompletely. Ignoring the tingly sensation, he looked at his still trembling arm that had caught Liya's fist and mumbled in a low voice, About 5%, huh? Chapter 1401 Training with Liya 2. Chapter 1401 Training with Liya 2. 1401 Training with Liya 2. What did you do to your body? Liya asked Yuan with a frown after their exchange. Yuan smiled and said, You make it sound like I'd done something bad to my body. I just achieved a new physique, that's all. A new physique? Liya frowned at his words, which made it sound like it was an easy thing to do. Now knowing that Yuan could catch her fists, Liya no longer held back and charged at him again, this time using all of her strength. Moreover, red scales started forming on her arms and neck, indicating that she had transformed. Yuan, not daring to underestimate her partial transformation, also used his full strength. Their aura collided, causing a gust of wind to stir within the usually calm mountain peak. When they started throwing punches and kicks around, the families living within the upper areas of the mountain felt the ground shaking, as if they were experiencing a minor earthquake. Every strike Liya tossed at Yuan would eradicate any of the Demon Sealing faction members with ease, yet Yuan blocked them with confidence. Suddenly, in the midst of their battle, Liya's eyes glowed gold, emitting a formidable pressure directed at Yuan. Dragon's Gaze. Yuan did not expect Liya to be able to use such a technique, and was taken by surprise. However, after being struck by her Dragon's Gaze, Yuan felt something was off about it. The power and pressure were lacking, almost as though it was incomplete. After using her trump card, Liya drove her palm at Yuan's stomach. Seeing this, Yuan smiled and said, "This is how you use Dragon's Gaze." Wah! Before Liya could even react, Yuan's eyes glowed gold, sending Liya's consciousness straight into the abyss. While Liya's body remained frozen in place, within her mind, she felt the intense gaze of a colossal eye, emanating an unimaginable amount of pressure. Liya, despite her pride, felt as insignificant as an ant under the gaze of that eye. What is this? Liya's entire being trembled in fear, as she couldn't take her gaze away from the eye, almost as though she was forced to face it. Yuan deactivated Dragon's Gaze after 3 short seconds, but it felt like she was in the void for minutes for Liya. When she returned to reality, Liya found herself sitting on the floor, her body soaked in sweat. "Why what the hell was that just now?" she shouted at him. "I was going to ask you the same. What technique was that just now? It felt like Dragon's Gaze, but it's too weak." Dragon's Gaze? As if such a technique exists in this world. "The one I used was created based on the foundation of Dragon's Gaze. I don't have a name for it," Liya revealed. Yuan's eyes widened with surprise after learning that she had managed to create a technique similar to Dragon's Gaze without knowing the original. "How is that possible? If you don't know Dragon's Gaze, how do you know its foundation?" he asked. "Umph. Why should I tell you?" Liya sneered. Suddenly, the Lord's voice resounded. "Dragons with a royal bloodline are born with an innate understanding of Dragon's Gaze. The purer the blood, the better." "Oh, so you belong to a royal bloodline?" Yuan looked at Liya. Seeing her unresponsiveness, Yuan smiled and said, "Would you like me to teach you Dragon's Gaze? The authentic one?" Liya's eyes widened at his words. She opened her mouth but quickly closed it again. It was clear that her pride was holding her back. "Take some time to think about it. My offer will always be open probably," Yuan said. After a moment of silence, he asked, "Now that I think about it, why don't you play Cultivation online, where Dragon's Gaze exists?" The Lord responded in her place. "The soul transference array has its restrictions. For example, if humans have a circle-shaped soul, beasts would have a square-shaped soul, and our square-shaped soul aren't affected by the soul transference array. Hence why we are unable to visit the divine heavens through Cultivation online." "I see. Anyways, want to continue our training? I want use Dragon's Gaze again," Yuan asked Liya. You obviously don't need any training, so I will stop wasting my time with you. Wang Ming, you should have recovered enough by now. Come." Liya turned her gaze to Wang Ming, who trembled from fear. "Ah shit. She'll probably use me as a punching bag because she cannot defeat Yuan." He sighed inwardly. Accepting his fate, he approached Liya for another round of training. Each member of the Demon Ceiling faction typically spars 6 to 7 times a day with Liya, so it wasn't anything new. At the end of the day, the Demon Ceiling faction made their way down the mountain with their bodies aching in pain. However, Yuan decided to stay with Liya upon the Lord's request. "Liya, now that you've found someone who can match you, it's a good chance for you to get some proper training for once," the Lord said. I don't need any training. Especially not from him," Liya exclaimed. "You can say that once you defeat him." The Lord continued to speak. "Yuan, do you mind training with her a little longer?" "I don't mind. It will also benefit me since the others aren't enough to make me sweat anymore." Yuan nodded. He looked at Liya and continued, "If you can defeat me even once, I will give you the Dragon's Gaze technique as a reward." Liya's eyebrows twitched at his alluring words. "You better not go back on your words," she said a moment later. Yuan smiled. "I promise." They continued sparring with each other for the rest of the day. By the time Yuan returned home, it was already well past midnight. Damn it! How is he so strong? It doesn't make any sense. Liya cursed out loud after Yuan had left. He's the immortal monarch's descendant. It's only natural. The Lord smiled. The immortal monarch's descendant. Liya mumbled. She remembered Yuan claiming to be the reincarnation of the immortal monarch himself, but she was still having trouble believing it. But to think he learned Dragon's Gaze. Even I did not expect that. The Lord said before mumbling to himself, if he can solve our current predicament, perhaps I should reward him with my blood essence, which would greatly assist his cultivation path. C1402 System Update. Chapter 1402 System Update. 1402 System Update. 3 days have passed since closed its servers for a system update. Although 3 days may seem short at a glance, one should consider how many people are addicted to the game. If an alcoholic drinks every day for the past year, it would be an incredible ordeal if they were suddenly forced to stop for 3 whole days. Moreover, it wasn't just a mere game for many players. It was their job, their livelihood. By selling the money or treasures they had acquired to paying players, many players are able to live a comfortable life. Of course, this would only be possible in a game as popular as, where countless passionate and wealthy players exist. In fact, most, if not all legacy families have their own gold farming operations, where hundreds or thousands of players solely focus on earning money, whether it be through hunting magical beasts or seeking treasures. The financial influence wielded by has outstripped numerous leading global enterprises, firmly embedding it in the world's economic fabric. It's no overstatement to claim that the global economy would teeter on the brink of collapse if were to suddenly disappear out of thin air. Many entities, including governmental bodies, closely monitor due to its profound global impact. Yet, given its elusive nature and mysterious operations, nobody knows where to begin, much less control them. Was owned and operated by a shell company operated by a fake identity. When people investigated this shell company, they couldn't find any information on it. No digital footprint, nothing. It was almost as if they were created and operated by a ghost. During these 3 days, Yuan spent most of his time training with Liya from morning to night. Because Liya wanted to preserve as much strength as possible for her training with Yuan, she halted training with the others and made them self-train at home instead. Of course, none of them had any complaints about their break. Should be returning sometime today, so I will end our training here, Yuan said to Liya sometime past noon. Okay. Liya nonchalantly nodded. Liya could tell that Shed improved drastically from their training. Now that she had someone who could face her at her strongest, she no longer needed to worry about holding back, allowing her talents to shine. Unfortunately, you couldn't defeat me even once. Next time, perhaps. Yuan smiled at her. Liya clenched her fists at his words, but she had no comeback. Once Yuan left and returned home, Liya approached the Lord and said, I do not want to lose to him again. Can you train me? Oh, you're asking for my help. The Lord was surprised, as had offered to train her before, but was rejected for some reason. Yes, but not now. We can do it after he deals with our current situation. Liya nodded. The Lord smiled and agreed to her request. Very well. Upon returning home, Yuan immediately tried to enter cultivation online. His consciousness drifted shortly after wearing the helmet, appearing in a pitch-black room with a countdown in the sky. 9 minutes and 12 seconds. 9 minutes and 11 seconds. 9 minutes and 10 seconds. There were less than 10 minutes before Cultivation Online opened its servers. Yuan lounged on the invisible surface, eyeing the countdown and silently pondering about the upcoming system update. A while later, Yuan felt the sudden emergence of another presence nearby, which shouldn't have been possible. He promptly rose to his feet, fixing his gaze on the direction of the newfound presence. What he initially thought to be a figment of his imagination proved to be true, as he discerned the faint outline of a person in the distant horizon. Who are you? He shouted towards the enigmatic figure, who seemed to possess more than the usual 2 arms, with additional appendages extending from their back like wings. I don't know how much you remember, but I am here to warn you that the others will soon emerge from their slumber. Once that happens, they will realize that I am the traitor and seal me away. Huh? What are you talking about? Yuan asked. I don't have much time left here since the system will activate again soon. Hurry up and recover your memories and kill them before your world is consumed. Don't disappoint me now. The figure disappeared the next moment before Yuan could utter another word. At the same time, the countdown reached its last 10 seconds. What the hell was that about? Who is the others? And why would the world be consumed if I don't kill them? Yuan pondered with a deep frown on his face as he tried to make sense of what just happened. However, his thoughts were interrupted by Cultivation Online's notification. Yuan's figure vanished from the void and appeared where he last logged off from. Welcome back, Brother Yuan. Welcome back. Xiao Hua and Lan Yingying's voice greeted him shortly after his return. I'm back? Are you okay, Brother Yuan? You seem a little pale. Xiao Hua noticed his expression and asked. Yeah, I am fine. He nodded. Meishio and the others logged in shortly after, appearing beside Yuan. So what's changed? Chu Liuxiang asked out loud as she opened her character status. I don't see anything different, she muttered afterward. Are they waiting for more people to get online before they make an announcement? Meishio wondered out loud. Yuan also checked his character status. Name, Yuan Cultivation, 9th level Spirit King Legacy, Great One's Legacy Bloodline, Immortal Monarch's Bloodline Physique, Heaven Refining Physique, Golden Immortal Physique Physical Strength, Mental Strength, Soul Strength, Physical Defense, Mental Defense. There were no apparent changes at first glance, and his stats remained unreadable. However, when he looked a little closer, he noticed a new passive skill that wasn't there before the update, and it even had an obnoxious name to it. Celestial Emperor's Curse, Grade, Celestial, Description. The effectiveness of all cultivation resources will be reduced by 99%. C1403 Celestial Emperor's Curse. Chapter 1403 Celestial Emperor's Curse 1403 Celestial Emperor's Curse. Huh? Yuan had a dumbfounded look on his face after seeing the effects of Celestial Emperor's Curse. However, before he could even comprehend the situation, he received a notification. Great Misfortune. Curse Grade, Divine, Description. A curse that lowers your luck by 5,000. Huh? Yuan could no longer contain his surprise and cried out loud. What? What happened? Everyone in the room looked at him with wide eyes. I don't know, but I've been cursed by the Celestial Emperor himself, he said in a dazed voice. What? Xiao Hua's shocked voice resounded, and she appeared before him the very next moment. Why would the Celestial Emperor curse you, Brother Yuan, when you've never met him before? She asked in a panicked voice. I don't know, but it happened. Because of this curse, all cultivation resources will be 99% less effective for me. I'm not exactly sure how it works, but it definitely doesn't sound good, he sighed. However, Xiao Hua's body trembled after hearing the effects of the curse, almost as if she recognized it. Brother Yuan, that curse is meant for exiles, she said a moment later. Ha, exiles? Does that mean I've become an exile? He asked with wide eyes. She shook her head. No, I don't sense the aura of an exile from Brother Yuan. However, that curse is undoubtedly meant for exiles, which restricts their ability to grow any stronger for obvious reasons. Meishio suddenly said, Do you think it's because you're progressing too fast, and the Celestial Emperor is trying to slow you down? Chu Liuxiang nodded in agreement. That's plausible. No, that's definitely the case. But why would the Celestial Emperor be worried about Yuan progressing too fast? Li Jinxi wondered out loud. Yuan sighed. While it's quite inconvenient to have such a significant reduction in my cultivation speed, it doesn't have any effect on me right now since I am already at a bottleneck, but it will definitely slow me down in the future if I don't get rid of it by then. On the brighter side, there are plenty of ways to strengthen myself without increasing my cultivation. Knock knock, hey, are you guys back? She merely knocked on their room after sensing their presence had returned. Yuan opened the door for her. Yes, we just got back. She merely entered the room and sensed the weird atmosphere. Did something happen? She asked. Yuan explained the situation to her. Wow. To be marked by the Celestial Emperor without meeting him. This is quite an impossible feat, but as expected of you, Yuan. Nothing is impossible for you. She merely expressed her awe at his ability to achieve the impossible. So, what are you going to do now? she then asked. There's nothing we can do about the curse right now, so we'll just move forward as planned. I am going to visit the myriad of techniques now. Since we've entered the fourth heaven, there should be more techniques available to us. Want to come along? Yuan asked them. Why not? Chu Liuxiang said. I'll also tag along. Mei Xiu nodded, followed by Li Jinxi. I will also come with you, Shi Meili said. They made their way to the myriad of techniques after checking out of the hotel. Surprisingly, Shi Meili did not need to have her fate examined even though it was her first visit. Apparently, such evaluation was only needed before the fourth heaven. You guys can take your time since I don't know how long it'll take, Yuan said to them before contacting Senior Bai and entering his world. You. Senior Bai's eyes widened with shock the moment he laid eyes on Yuan. He could discern that Yuan's body had undergone a profound transformation since their last encounter, but he remained ignorant of the precise cause of this change. What did you do to your body? How can such drastic change occur in such a short amount of time? Senior Bai had to ask. Yuan smiled and said, It's nothing serious. I just acquired a new physique, that's all. Senior Bai's eyes widened a little more after hearing his words. So you have two different physiques at this moment? Yuan nodded, confirming his doubts. Just as some individuals can only wield a single soul weapon, most people possess only one physique. In fact, due to compatibility issues, having two physiques within one body is considerably more extraordinary than wielding two soul weapons simultaneously. Senior Bai had the urge to inquire about Yuan's new physique, but a sense of foreboding made him reconsider, opting to remain silent. After congratulating Yuan on his new achievement, Senior Bai said, Anyways, you're here for Lady Su, correct? Give me a moment to contact her. Thank you. Yuan nodded. Senior Bai left to contact Su Jiechi, returning alone about half an hour later. Is she busy? Yuan asked. A little, but she will be here within a few hours. In the meantime, why don't we entertain ourselves? Senior Bai suddenly suggested. What kind of entertainment? Yuan raised an eyebrow. Senior Bai smiled and said, Do you recall that small exchange we had some time ago? When you revealed the God of War's astral arts to me. I want to personally experience your growth since then, so I want you to attack me with everything you've got again. Yuan's eyes widened at his suggestion and responded in a reserved manner. Are you sure? A confident grin appeared on Senior Bai's face as he spoke. If you think you can hurt me after growing a little, you are underestimating the power of an immortal cultivator. He continued. Or are you waiting for me to reward you if you can hurt me? Very well. I'll give you a treasure if you can so much as graze my skin. Since you insist, I won't be humble. Yuan nodded. They flew into the air a moment later, but they didn't immediately start. Senior Bai took a moment to remove all of the nearby floating islands, so that they wouldn't get destroyed. Once prepared, they both faced each other with some distance between them. Good luck. Senior Bai smiled. You too. Yuan smiled back. C1404 Yuan's most powerful attack. Chapter 1404 Yuan's most powerful attack. 1404 Yuan's most powerful attack. With a deep breath, Yuan gathered his spiritual energy, causing his aura to surge, reaching heights that seemed to touch the heavens. Since I don't have to worry about killing him, I guess I should throw everything I have at him. Yuan thought to himself as he activated God of War's astral arts, materializing a colossal avatar behind him. This avatar had grown at least 100 times larger than before, and its colossal weapon alone dominated the entire sky above Senior Bai. Overwhelmed by the formidable sight, Senior Bai could only swallow nervously in the face of such immense power. The God of War's astral arts utilizes one's soul strength more than spiritual energy. Just how strong is his soul strength? Even a divine lord wouldn't compare to him, who is only a mere spirit king. Senior Bai clenched his fists and immediately started fortifying his defenses. After their previous exchange, Senior Bai did not dare to underestimate Yuan, who was countless times stronger now. He created a powerful defensive formation around himself that could easily block even a divine lord's attack. This much should be enough, no? I should prepare some insurance just in case. Thus, he created not one but two more defensive formations around him, enough to defend against a Divine King's attack. Once he was finished, Senior Bai awaited Yuan's attack with a confident smile on his face. However, Yuan showed no signs of launching his attack anytime soon, and his aura continued to surge, growing in intensity. Senior Bai swallowed nervously at Yuan's seemingly endless strength and wondered, does he not have a limit? Is he truly a mere spirit king? There's simply no way. Are you prepared to receive my attack, Senior Bai? Yuan suddenly asked him. Senior Bai narrowed his eyes and asked, I thought I told you to use your full strength. Why are you holding back? What do you mean? Yuan tilted his head in a puzzled manner. During our last exchange, you had this golden aura around you, that terrifying and mysterious power. Yet I don't sense it from you right now. Senior Bai explained. He must be talking about heaven's supremacy. Yuan immediately realized why Senior Bai thought he was holding back. Yuan sighed. I told you back then that I have no control over that power, Senior Bai. Unfortunately, I am still unable to summon that power as I wish. Despite saying that, Yuan still had one use of heaven's supremacy left, but he intended on saving it in case of an emergency. As much as he wanted to win against Senior Bai, he couldn't justify using his trump card in such a wasteful manner. After a moment of silence, Senior Bai spoke. Very well, but you better not hold back any more than that. Yuan nodded. I wouldn't dare look down on you, Senior Bai. Then I will begin my attack now. Yuan warned again before he started moving. He raised his arm, pointing it toward the sky, muttering in a low voice, Limitless sword, first domain, endless sword stream. Over 20,000 swords materialized above them, each imbued with enhanced sword aura. Since he didn't have to worry about prolonging the fight, he used his spiritual energy without reserve. Senior Bai's eyes widened with shock upon witnessing such a frightening sight. Even with his vast experience, he has never experienced anything close to this before. Not just sword aura, but enhanced sword aura. Senior Bai began losing confidence in his own defense, but he couldn't add more right after Yuan began his attack, as that was no different than admitting defeat in his eyes. However, Yuan did not release the attack just yet. Limitless sword, second domain, descending sword god. Merging all 20,000 swords into one colossal blade, Yuan, controlling the massive avatar, firmly grasped the unified weapon with both hands. Oh fuck. Senior Bai held a dazed look on his face, as Yuan prepared to swing the massive blade with the God of War's avatar. Yuan swung the colossal sword, and in an instant, the massive blade descended upon Senior Bai, cleaving through the fabric of space as it moved. Seeing this, Senior Bai's instincts started screaming at him. He quickly tossed away his pride, and started preparing more defensive formations. However, right as he was about to complete the formation, he sensed an ominous glare and was immediately struck by an invisible attack that tore his already weakened mental defenses to shreds. In the fleeting moments before the abyss of darkness enveloped his consciousness, Senior Bai managed to cast a final, profound gaze upon Yuan, whose golden eyes radiated an unfathomable brilliance, resembling that of a dragon's gaze. To think I still underestimated him. This is my defeat. Omicron the massive sword tore apart Senior Bai's formation like thin sheets of paper, and continued straight for his body. Right as the sword closed in on Senior Bai's body, his entire being suddenly surged with an unfathomable aura foreign to Yuan, followed by a powerful shockwave that not only shattered the massive sword into countless fragments, but also sent Yuan flying far away. Their world shook violently, as if it might crumble at any moment. The immense power even leaked to the outside world, messing with the myriad of techniques and making everything tremble. Even with the golden immortal's physique, Yuan felt a crushing pressure envelope his body, threatening to destroy it. By the time Senior Bai snapped out of his daze and retrieved his aura, the damage had already been done. His world had cracks all over, and Yuan was miles away with a bloody nose, staring at him with a look of disbelief. Senior Bai immediately approached Yuan to check his condition. Are you okay? Why yes. I'm just a little shaken by your prowess, Senior Bai. Yuan smiled. My instincts took over my body when I was trapped in your mental attack. I am deeply ashamed of myself. Senior Bai clasped his hands and lowered his head as he apologized in a sincere voice. C1405 Immortal Qi. Chapter 1405 Immortal Qi 1405 Immortal Qi. Let me inspect your body for a moment. I need to make sure you're actually fine. Senior Bai said as he placed his palm on Yuan's chest. Despite Yuan's assertion of well-being, Senior Bai found it hard to accept that a mere spirit king could withstand his immortal qi without incurring significant harm. However, Senior Bai wasn't looking down on Yuan because of his low cultivation. What he had inadvertently unleashed moments ago was immortal qi, a power reserved for those who had transcended the realm of mortals by becoming a bronze immortal. It was a power beyond mortal endurance, not meant to be withstood by ordinary beings, regardless of their talents. The immortal qi Senior Bai had unleashed carried enough potency to inflict serious injuries, or even death upon a spirit sovereign. However, Yuan, a mere peak spirit king, emerged with nothing more than a bloody nose after facing the brunt of Senior Bai's immortal qi. This outcome left Senior Bai utterly confounded, as it defied comprehension. Not daring to believe what was before his very eyes, Senior Bai inspected Yuan's body again. Sure enough, his internal organs remained unharmed, only slightly stressed because of the immense pressure. Unbelievable. Even though it was only for a brief moment, he endured my immortal qi and came out nearly unscathed. What kind of divine body does he possess? Senior Bai swallowed nervously as he lowered his hand. I am glad that you are unharmed. Once again, I extend my deepest apology for my lack of control just now, Senior Bai said a moment later. Yuan shook his head and said, Forget about that, Senior Bai. Can you tell me more about that aura you released instead? I have never experienced anything like that before. Senior Bai nodded and explained. What you experienced just now is called immortal qi. It's spiritual energy that is also similar to your sword aura, something that can only be comprehended and absorbed by cultivators after they achieve bronze immortal. Immortal qi is what differentiates cultivators and immortal cultivators, as it's impossible for a mortal cultivator to defeat someone with immortal qi no matter how talented they are, sort of like enhanced sword aura and sword aura. Yuan pondered Senior Bai's words. During Tian Yang's time, the concept of immortal qi did not exist even though there were several immortal cultivators. By the way, I also sense something ominous inside your body, a powerful curse. Did something happen to you recently? Senior Bai suddenly asked. Yuan showed a bittersweet smile and said, Sort of. I've been cursed by the Celestial Emperor. You what? Senior Bai exclaimed in a shocked voice. Why, you met with the Celestial Emperor? He quickly shook his head. No, I haven't. I don't know why, but he decided to curse me. Perhaps I've been climbing the 9 divine heavens too quickly, and he wants to slow me down. What sort of curse? Senior Bai inquired for more information. According to Xiaohua, it's a curse meant for exiles, and it reduces the effectiveness of all cultivation resources for me by a significant amount. Senior Bai frowned upon learning of this information and said in a cold voice, I will let Lady Su know of this later. She can speak with the Celestial Emperor and get it removed. Yuan's eyes widened at his words. Did Su Jieqi have such influence that she could change the Celestial Emperor's mind? After pondering for a moment, Yuan said, Please wait, Senior Bai. I appreciate what you are trying to do, but I do not wish for you or Miss Su to upset the Celestial Emperor over such a minor issue. Minor? You call this a minor issue? Senior Bai looked at him with a dumbfounded face. Right now, yes. After all, I cannot increase my cultivation past Spirit King because of my physique, so the curse does not affect me at this moment. What about the future? Surely you don't plan on remaining as a Spirit King forever, right? Of course not. If I cannot find a solution by then, I'll request for Miss Su's help. Alright, we won't do anything for the time being, but Lady Su has a right to know that the Celestial Emperor had laid his hands on a member of the Celestial Overlord. To harm a member of our faction is akin to harming the entire faction and challenging Lady Su herself. Even the Celestial Emperor has no right to do such a thing without any reason. Senior Bai said. Is that so? I didn't know that. By the way, I recently received a promotion to the rank of general. Yuan casually brought up his promotion. Senior Bai had a bewildered look on his face as he silently stared at Yuan with eyes as wide as saucers. After a long minute of silence, he spoke in a low voice. Did you just say you've been promoted to the rank of general within the celestial overlords? Yuan calmly nodded his head in confirmation. That's impossible. The amount of karma you would need to reach general isn't such an insignificant amount that it could be achieved in so little time. Senior Bai couldn't believe it. He refused to believe it. Even Su Jiechi, who had the fastest promotions in their history, invested well over a century in accumulating sufficient karma to attain the esteemed rank of general. The fact that Yuan, who hadn't been a member of the faction for long, had already amassed enough karma to attain the rank of general was simply incredulous. Seeing Senior Bai's doubtful expression, Yuan revealed his faction rank. No way. Senior Bai had no choice but to believe Yuan after seeing the symbol general on his palm. Omicron M. What did you do to acquire so much karma in such a short time? Even wiping out an evil sect would not help you reach the rank of general this quickly. Senior Bai had to ask. Yuan smiled and said, It wasn't much. I happened to come across 100 exiles and slew them all. 100 exiles. Did you sneak into the primordial realm or something? Senior Bai regretted asking, as the chances of encountering so many exiles were even more ridiculous than his speedrun to the rank of general. Yuan chuckled. It was just a coincidence, really. Senior Bai closed his mouth as soon as he opened it and said a moment later, Lady Su has arrived. He opened the entrance to his realm, and in the next instant, Su Jiechi's exquisite face emerged from the portal, her divine aura instantly permeating and enveloping the entire world. C1406 Purple Jade Slip. Chapter 1406 Purple Jade Slip 1406 Purple Jade Slip. What happened here? The first thing Su Jiechi noticed when she walked through the portal was the condition of Senior Bai's world. There were still cracks all over the place, looking like it was on the verge of collapse. Senior Bai rubbed his nose in a somewhat embarrassed manner and said, I wanted to test our young friend here, and got a little carried away. He purposefully avoided giving her the details, as he didn't want to admit losing to Yuan, even using Immortal Qi by accident. Fortunately for him, Su Jiechi was not interested in their business, and did not question further. She looked at Yuan with a narrowed gaze, as if she was examining him. A subtle smile appeared on her face a moment later, and she spoke in a calm voice. You've grown strong, Yuan. Thank you, Miss Su. She descended on the platform and retrieved a purple jade slip from her spatial ring, offering it to Yuan. What is this? He asked. This was left behind by the founder of the celestial overlords, she said. He gave it to me before he disappeared, but I do not know how to use it. Why don't you try it? Perhaps it can only be activated by those with the heaven refining physique. How to use it? Why don't you try it? Perhaps it can only be activated by those with the heaven refining physique. If it doesn't work, I want it back, you hear me? Yuan nodded and accepted the purple jade slip from her. The moment his fingers made contact with it, the purple jade slip emitted a radiant glow, casting a luminous sheen of purple light that enveloped the surroundings. Yuan became dazed as memories started flowing inside his head. Inside the memories, he saw himself traveling the world with a cute little girl by his side. This little girl was a troublemaker and always picked fights with people. Most importantly, he also recalled the process of evolving his heaven-refining physique. Yuan snapped out of his daze a few moments later. Yuan? What just happened? Seeing that head returned to reality, Su Jiechi asked him. Hearing her voice, Yuan turned to look at Su Jiechi, who greatly resembled the little girl in his memories, and he subconsciously muttered, You mischievous little brat. Su Jiechi's expression froze with a clear look of shock on her face. 12:05 Yuan. Senior Bai looked at Yuan with a terrified look on his face. Yuan just realized what had uttered and quickly covered his mouth. What did you just call me? Su Jiechi asked after a moment of silence, her body trembling. Sorry, I didn't mean to call you that. I was still influenced by the memories inside the jade slip when I said that. You look like someone from the memories. Yuan swallowed nervously, mentally preparing himself for her wrath. By memories, you mean the jade slip contained the founder's memories? Su Jieqi inquired with a serious expression on her face. He nodded. I believe so. Tell me everything you saw and I will forgive you for the rude remarks, she then said. Of course. Su Jieqi suddenly turned to look at Senior Bai and said, Leave us alone. I understand. Senior Bai didn't even question it, and immediately left them alone. Yuan spent the next several minutes recalling the memories. As she listened with her eyes closed, Su Jieqi's mind drifted back into the past and recalled her own memories with the founder. You mischievous little brat, what have you done this time? A handsome man sighed as he glanced at the beautiful young girl before him. Su Jieqi, who was only around 16 years old, spoke in a nonchalant voice. Some loser confessed his love for me, so I beat him up. The handsome man rubbed his eyes and said, How many times do I have to tell you to not beat your fellow disciples over the smallest things? And what's wrong with one expressing their feelings to you? It's annoying, she calmly said. Don't you used to utter the words I love you a dozen times a day? The handsome man glared at her. Su Jieqi's face flushed red as she hastily responded. That was years ago when I was still an innocent baby. Ouch. Su Jieqi suddenly cried out in pain when the handsome man flickered her forehead. You're still a baby though. Su Jieqi held her forehead while trying to appear angry. But the handsome man only found her even more adorable. Go apologize to that disciple, he then said. But, no buts. Or would you rather spend a month in seclusion? I hate you, father. Su Jieqi shouted as she stormed outside the room. Sometime later, Yuan said, That's all. Su Jieqi opened her eyes and realized they were unnaturally moist and foggy. She quickly wiped her eyes and said, There's no mistaking it. The memories within the jade slip belong to the founder of the celestial overlords, my adoptive father. I thought it would help you with your physique, but it turned out to be completely irrelevant. Sorry. Yuan shook his head and said, Actually, I did learn something about my physique from these memories, so it was definitely very useful. Thank you, Miss Su. Is that so? That's good to hear. Su Jieqi then narrowed her eyes at him and continued in a cold voice. By the way, you are forbidden from sharing those memories with anyone, do you hear me? Yuan smiled. Please don't worry, Miss Su. I will bring these memories with me to my grave. And who would I even share them with? I will trust you. Do you have any questions for me before I take my leave? She then asked. Yuan pondered for a moment before asking. What sort of privileges do I get as a general in the faction? You've already reached the rank of general? Su Jieqi's eyes widened at his words. Yes. He showed the general symbol to her as proof. Su Jieqi was left speechless. Well. As a general, you are entitled to 1 treasure from our treasury. Would you like to receive your reward now? She asked. Yuan immediately nodded and said, I would. C1407 Celestial Overlords Headquarters. Chapter 1407 Celestial Overlords Headquarters 1407 Celestial Overlords Headquarters. I am bringing him to the Celestial Overlords Headquarters, so that he can receive his reward for reaching the rank of general. Su Jieqi said to Senior Bai after calling him back. Senior Bai nodded and remarked, Perfect. In fact, I intended to seek your permission to bestow upon him a treasure from the treasury. If you approve, he'll get to acquire 2 treasures instead of 1. I don't mind since it's coming from you, but am interested in your reason, she said. I lost a bet with him. Senior Bai said with a defeated smile on his face. Oh, I'd like to hear more details on this later. Anyways, if you want to give him an extra treasure, I'll allow it. Not that you need my permission. Senior Bai was already at the rank where he had the authority to give treasures to others without needing permission, but he still asked Su Jieqi out of his respect for her. Now then, let's move to the headquarters. Senior Bai nodded and created a portal before them, its aura distinct from the usual ones. Su Jieqi stepped into the portal first, with Yuan following suit, and Senior by entering last. Upon arriving on the other side, Yuan was greeted with the sight of a massive city before him. This is the headquarters? I was expecting a building, not an entire city. Yuan muttered in a dazed voice. Senior by smiled at his reaction and said, Actually, this place is more like a sect than a city. Su Jieqi then said, It's not just like a sect. It was a sect. The founder of the Celestial Overlords used to be the sect leader of a small sect, which he transformed into the Celestial Overlords. Is this place like Senior Bai's world? Yuan asked. Yes, it exists outside out of the 9 heavens if that's what you are asking. Follow me. I'll show you to the treasury. Su Jieqi said. As they walked, Yuan inquired more information about the place. How many people live here? About 20,000 people. Is that a lot for a faction? No, it's actually on the smaller scale. The average faction has around 100,000 members while the larger ones have millions. We're a lot smaller than I thought, Yuan said. Our numbers may seem tiny in comparison to others, but we've risen to become one of the most powerful factions in the 9 heavens with our modest population, all thanks to having only exceptionally talented members. Su Jieqi said, her voice resonating with pride. Just one of our top members can stand toe-to-toe with an entire faction, Su Jieqi added, emphasizing the extraordinary prowess of their elite members. Is there a ranking for factions? Of course, and there are 2 separate rankings. The first is the karma ranking, where factions are ranked based on their accumulated karma. We're ranked 7th there. The other ranking would be the power ranking, based on our overall prowess. In this particular ranking, we are ranked 2nd. Wow, 2nd? That's amazing. Yuan said. We used to be 1st, but that was when the founder was still around. Su Jieqi sighed. As they traversed deeper into the Celestial Overlord's headquarters, Yuan noticed the atmosphere intensifying, with an increasing presence of experts boasting unfathomable cultivation bases. At his current level, he could only clearly sense up to Divine Grandmaster without much effort. Anything above that would require more time and effort. Most of our members are Immortal Cultivators, Senior by suddenly said. You have the record when it comes to having the lowest cultivation in our faction. He continued, while that's an amazing feat, it's also quite dangerous. After all, most people would not believe you are a member if they saw your cultivation base. Even if you showed them your symbol, it might not be good enough, especially now that you have reached the rank of general. He's right. You should avoid revealing the fact that you're a member until you have a higher cultivation base. Su Jieqi added. They arrived at the treasury an hour later. The treasury took the form of a pagoda with 4 floors. Standing at the sealed entrance were 2 guards, both with a cultivation that Yuan could not identify. We greet Celestial Overlord Su and Overlord Bai. The guards greeted them with bowed heads and arched bodies. Omicron M. Su Jieqi acknowledged them with a slight nod and said, We'll be opening the treasury for a moment. She turned to look at Yuan and handed him 2 talismans and said, The treasures inside are protected with a powerful formation that can only be deactivated with these talismans. Use these talismans on the treasures you want. Each talisman will deactivate 1 formation. Also, you are only permitted to look around the 1st floor. Even if you go to a higher floor, these talismans won't do anything there. The guards' eyes widened with shock when they saw the scene of Su Jieqi handing 2 talismans to Yuan. Who the hell is that mortal kid? Why does he get to take 2 treasures from the vault? They stared at Yuan with bewildered looks on their faces. However, they didn't dare to question Su Jieqi on her business. I understand. Yuan accepted the talismans. There are plenty of treasures on the 1st floor, but you don't need to rush picking a treasure. Take your time, she added. Okay, he nodded. A moment later, Su Jieqi opened the treasury, and she silently watched Yuan's figure vanish into the pagoda. After Yuan entered the treasury, Senior Bai communicated with Su Jieqi through divine sense, saying, There's something I need to make you aware of. It's related to Yuan and the Celestial Emperor. The Celestial Emperor? What's Yuan got to do with him? Su Jieqi turned to look at him with a deep frown on her face. Senior Bai went on to reveal Yuan's predicament, disclosing the Celestial Emperor's actions of cursing Yuan to her. Upon learning this information, an overwhelming pressure radiated from Su Jieqi's entire being, causing their surroundings to tremble and her face to contort with anger. C1408 Abyss Piercer. Chapter 1408 Abyss Piercer. 1408 Abyss Piercer, C Celestial Overlord. What's the matter? Please calm down, Celestial Overlord. The guards were startled and frightened by Su Jieqi's abrupt and overwhelming pressure, which sent shockwaves through the entire headquarters, causing it to tremble. Moreover, several individuals in the vicinity showed up within seconds to see what the commotion was about. Lady Su. Senior Bai cleared his throat and called out to her. Su Jieqi withdrew her aura, yet her face retained a manifestation of anger. What happened, Lady Su? Who dares to anger our goddess? Fairy Su, that anger doesn't suit your beautiful face. The newcomers immediately started inquiring about the situation, and tried to ease Su Jieqi's anger at the same time. However, Su Jieqi was in no mood to deal with them and shouted, "Leave!" Her cold voice sent chills down their spine, and not wanting to anger her even further with their presence, these experts immediately disappeared into thin air like ghosts. Once they were alone again, ignoring the guards, Su Jieqi muttered, "Even if he's the Celestial Emperor, I will not let him do as he pleases with my people. How dare he target a member of our faction? I will go speak with him after this." The Celestial Emperor? The guards were bewildered after learning of the cause of Su Jieqi's anger. Although this wasn't the first time the Celestial Emperor had upset Su Jieqi, it was never to such a degree. "Please wait a minute, Lady Su. There's more to this," Senior Bai quickly said. He continued, "I already told Yuan that you would do something about his curse, but he refused our help, saying that the curse doesn't affect him at this moment, and that he would try to deal with it himself. If he cannot deal with it by the time it really affects him, he will seek our help." Su Jieqi frowned and asked, "Is he worried about getting us involved with the Celestial Emperor? What needless worry. The Celestial Emperor may be powerful, but he's not omniscient and untouchable. That's just the kind of person he is." Senior Bai smiled. Su Jieqi suddenly fell silent with a pondering look on her face. After a long moment of silence, she spoke, "Very well. I won't interfere for now. However, we're going to pull the forces we sent to assist the Celestial Emperor back." "Do you mean those who went to hunt down the escaped prisoners from the Nine Heavens Eternal Grotto? If we do that, not just the Celestial Emperor, but the others will also question us. Let them question us. If the Celestial Emperor wants an answer, he can come find me," Su Jieqi said. It was evident to Senior Bai that Su Jieqi harbored no genuine intention of letting the Celestial Emperor off the hook for meddling with Yuan. Even if she didn't directly confront the Celestial Emperor for answers, she would undoubtedly create complications for him. Perhaps because Yuan was the target, it elicited such a profound reaction from Su Jieqi. Senior Bai was certain that she wouldn't have responded with such intensity if it had involved anyone else in the faction. Meanwhile, inside the treasury, Yuan inspected all of the treasures one by one. There were all sorts of treasures available, from spiritual treasures to spiritual medicines. Most of the treasures were between divine grade and ancient grade. If he had to be honest, the treasures appeared somewhat underwhelming in his eyes, and the majority of the items there either didn't suit him or wouldn't provide enough assistance. While I can make do without any of the treasures in here, the others could use better equipment even if they cannot wield them now. After spending almost 3 hours inside the treasury, Yuan used the talismans to retrieve the treasures head-picked. The talisman emitted a faint glow when it was used, turning into dust after the formation had successfully deactivated. Yuan grabbed the first treasure, a stunning black bow crafted from a crystal-like material, its body translucent and glistening as if stars resided within it. Abyss Piercer. Grade, Ancient. Quality, Peak. Physical strength required, 5 million. Penetration, 690,000. Description. Pierce through the void with this beautiful yet powerful bow crafted with abyss crystal as its core material. This bow uses arrows made from spiritual energy or aura. This will be great for Meisio, who has been practicing with the bow. Yuan mumbled as he stored the bow in his spatial ring. He proceeded to walk to the next treasure. After removing the formation with his last talisman, he grabbed the silver bracelet and placed it in his spatial ring. Once he was done, he immediately left the treasury, where Su Jiechi and Senior Bai were waiting outside. What did you get? Senior Bai asked him out of curiosity. Yuan showed the treasures he acquired to them with a smile on his face. Huh? A bow and a bracelet? Aren't you a sword master? Why do you need a bow? Senior Bai looked at him with a puzzled expression. It's not for me, he calmly said. You picked a treasure for someone else? You're more generous than I thought. Su Jiechi said. I doubt it's just for any ordinary friend, your girlfriend perhaps? Senior Bai said with a teasing smile on his face. To their surprise, Yuan actually nodded, something like that. Huh. Su Jiechi's eyes widened slightly after hearing that Yuan had a girlfriend, as this was news to her. As for Senior Bai, he was already aware of Yuan's group of ladies, so he wasn't that surprised. What about the other treasure? Are you also giving that away? Senior Bai continued inquiring. Yuan nodded. Yes. You're truly something, Yuan. While the treasures on the first floor are only divine grade and ancient grade, they are all top-tier treasures even within their respective grades. Not many people would be willing to give away one, much less two treasures even if it's their loved ones, Senior Bai remarked. It's nothing worth mentioning. After all, it's only natural to look after those you love. And no matter how valuable these treasures may be, they will never be as valuable as those around me. Yuan smiled. C1409 Perks of Being a General. Chapter 1409 Perks of Being a General. 1409 Perks of Being a General. If you're done here, I will take you back, Su Jiechi said. Yuan looked at her with slightly raised eyebrows. Perhaps he was overthinking it, but he sensed a hint of irritation within Su Jiechi's voice, but he couldn't recall doing anything to annoy her. Yes, I am done here, he said a moment later. Su Jiechi looked at Senior Bai, who nodded, creating a portal before them the next second. This will take you back to the myriad of techniques, he said. Do you have any questions before you leave? Yuan pondered for a bit before asking. How do I come here without your help? Surely, there must be a way to enter the Celestial Overlords headquarters without Senior Bai's assistance. Otherwise, that would make Senior Bai a gatekeeper. We have places spread throughout the 9 heavens with portals that lead to this place, though they only exist within the 6th heaven and above, said Senior Bai. But if you ever want to visit this place for whatever reason, you can just contact me through the myriad of techniques, he added. Yuan nodded. I see. Thank you. Until next time. Yuan walked through the portal the next moment, disappearing from the Celestial Overlords headquarters, and returning to the myriad of techniques. Have you guys found any suitable techniques? Yuan asked the others when he returned to their side. This place has an abundance of techniques. I can't believe such a treasure trove exists, she Meili exclaimed, rendered speechless by the vast array of techniques available for purchase. Yuan looked at her, who was carrying over a dozen techniques in her arms, smiled, and said, That's an impressive amount of techniques you have there. She chuckled. Don't worry, I'm not expecting you to pay for them. If they're below a certain rank, I can acquire them for free, he said. Really? They are all divine rank techniques though. Probably. Yuan looked at Meishio and the others. Excluding Xiaohua, they all had 2 to 3 techniques in their grasp. Upon entering the 4th heaven, the volume of techniques accessible in the myriad of techniques had significantly expanded, unveiling numerous new and formidable skills for them to explore. Are you all ready? He asked. They nodded. Seeing this, Yuan guided them to the front desk, where a middle-aged man was overseeing the operations. This was his first time buying techniques from the myriad of techniques, after he achieved the rank of general. He showed his symbol to the middle-aged man and asked, Do I get any discounts? Even though Su Jiechi warned him to not show off his symbol until he increased his cultivation, he figured that it would be safe to do so within the myriad of techniques. The middle-aged man furrowed his brows upon seeing the symbol, casting a disapproving glare at Yuan while scrutinizing him from head to toe. You're a general within the celestial overlords? How come I don't recognize you? The middle-aged man spoke in a cold voice. He was a warrior in the faction, and had memorized all of the generals and above. Yet he didn't recognize Yuan. Moreover, Yuan seemed clueless about his own privileges as a general. I'm a new member, and I was only recently promoted to the rank of general, said Yuan. The middle-aged man narrowed his eyes at Yuan, whose cultivation was simply too low to be part of the celestial overlords, much less a general there. The middle-aged man sighed a moment later. While uncommon, there are people like you from time to time, bold individuals who think they can fool the myriad of techniques. However, you are especially bold, to utter such ridiculous lies with a straight face. How can someone who just joined the faction become a general already? Yuan raised an eyebrow at his ominous words. The punishment for impersonating one of us is death, but I will give you a chance to admit your crime and apologize. The middle-aged man spoke in a calm voice, yet his gaze was cold and oozing with killing intent. Seeing this, Yuan sighed. What's the point of this symbol if nobody believes me? And don't you have a talisman that proves I am a member of the faction? That only proves you are a member, not a general, the middle-aged man calmly said. Yuan took away the symbol the next moment, and retrieved a medallion from his spatial ring. Here. This is. The middle-aged man swallowed nervously at the sight of Senior Bey's medallion. Don't tell me you're going to say it's a fake, Yuan calmly said. The middle-aged man accepted the medallion into his hands, taking a moment to thoroughly inspect it. It's real, he muttered in a dazed voice. If you still have doubts, you can ask Senior Bey. That won't be necessary. I apologize for doubting you, General. May I have your name? Yuan. Then, General Yuan, allow me to give you a brief explanation of your privileges as a general. As a general, you are allowed to acquire any heaven rank and divine rank techniques from the myriad of techniques for free. Ancient rank techniques will have a 75% discount. Divine rank techniques are free for me? That's very generous. Yuan didn't expect the faction to be so generous. That may seem to be the case at first glance, but if you think about it, most generals have a cultivation of immortal ascension and beyond. At that level, divine rank techniques aren't as useful, the middle-aged man explained. Makes sense. Yuan nodded. It only seemed like a crazy privilege to him because he was still a spirit king in the fourth heaven, where divine rank techniques are still rare and valuable. In the upper heavens, however, they are not as valuable and sought after. Yuan turned to look at Shimei and the others and said, You heard him. As long as it's not ancient rank, you can have them for free. No way. Shimei muttered in a dazed voice with a bewildered expression on her face. She had prepared to spend a fortune on her techniques, so it was baffling to hear that she wouldn't need to spend a coin on them. But I won't complain. Shimei merrily walked over to the front desk and laid all of her techniques before the middle-aged man, creating a small mountain. C1410 Sacred Bracelet. Chapter 1410 Sacred Bracelet. 1410 Sacred Bracelet. After Shimei placed her techniques on the front desk, the others quickly followed. Meishio had 2 techniques, Chu Liuxiang had 3, Li Jinxi had 3, and Lan Yingying had 2. In total, 26 divine rank techniques formed a small mountain in front of the middle-aged man, who wore a weird expression on his face. While it was fully within Yuan's privilege as a general to purchase so many divine rank techniques, it still felt weird to the middle-aged man, especially since he wasn't buying it for himself. Moreover, they were still within the fourth heaven, where divine rank techniques are precious. If Yuan wanted to abuse his privileges by selling these divine rank techniques as though they were candy, he would easily make a fortune. However, it would cause an uproar within the fourth heaven and catastrophic damages to the economy. If that were to happen, the higher-ups would not sit still, as such actions would hurt their faction's reputation and karma. After acquiring the techniques, they left the myriad of techniques and went to the nearest hotel, where they talked about their plans. I will be heading to the Vanishing Valley now. Unfortunately, I cannot bring any of you with me since I cannot guarantee your safety there. except Xiaohua and Lan Yingying who can reside safely within my Dantian. Yuan said to them. Normally, I would complain and follow you even if you refuse, but I have a lot of new techniques to learn, so I don't mind staying behind. She merely said as she was already holding on to one of these techniques with an eager look on her face. I was already planning on staying behind to cultivate since we're still nowhere near capable enough. Chu Liuxiang said. Me too, Meishio said. Are there any locations where we can train without any concerns about our surroundings? Li Jinxi asked. I'm not sure but. Yuan lifted his head to look at the ceiling and called out. Dongyi, are you here? There was no response. I guess it'll take him a little longer to come to the fourth heaven. Unlike Yuan and the others, Dongyi did not have the luxury of traveling between the 9 heavens using the stairway to heaven because of his identity. I think the Cultivator's haven may have something like that. Meishio suddenly said. The usual spot, huh? Let's check it out. Chu Liuxiang nodded. They left the hotel shortly after, and made their way to the Cultivator's haven. Of course, we have training rooms specifically for those who wish to practice their techniques without worry, the receptionist said after being inquired by them. She led them to the basement, where a hallway of rooms was located. These rooms are reinforced with Tier 5 formations that can withstand attacks from even a spirit sovereign without any problems. The receptionist gave them a brief tour of one of these rooms. The interior was quite spacious with about 30 meters in width, 40 meters in length, and about 20 meters in height. There was even a bathroom available. Since he wasn't sure how long it would take him to return, Yuan handed the others enough money to use these rooms for half a year without any breaks. Naturally, he didn't actually think he would need that long. It was more of a precaution. Before leaving, Yuan retrieved the Abyss Piercer from his spatial ring and offered it Meishio. I want you to have this. This is. I don't even have the power to wield this bow. Meishio stared at the beautiful black bow in her grasp with a dumbfounded look on her face. I am well aware, but you'll eventually be able to wield it. Yuan smiled and he continued. It even looks similar to my Starry Abyss. I think they were made with the same materials. Yuan showed his Starry Abyss and sure enough, the blade looked like it was made with Abyss crystal, the very same material used for the Abyss Piercer. Thank you. I will treasure it. Meishio said with a warm smile on her face. Before he left her training room, Meishio gave him a passionate kiss on the lips that lasted for several seconds. Yuan visited Lan Yingying last. Although she could have followed him, she decided to stay behind to train as well. While she was stronger than Li Jinxi and the others from Earth, she still fell behind Xiaohua and Xiaohua. Here, I want you to have this. Yuan handed the other treasure he acquired from the Celestial Overlord's treasury to her. A bracelet. Lan Yingying accepted the silver bracelet with a curious expression on her face. The moment she touched the bracelet, she sensed a connection with it, almost as though they were fated to be together. Sacred bracelet, grade, ancient, quality, peak, description. A beautiful bracelet forged in sacred fire. Increases the wearer's efficiency and power by 500% when using fire-related techniques. Its effects will double when using sacred fire. When Yuan saw this bracelet, he instantly thought of Lan Yingying, who could wield sacred fire. This bracelet will improve your sacred fire's efficiency and power. Yuan explained its effects to her. It boosts the power of my sacred fire? No wonder why the sacred fire in my body acted up with excitement when I touched it. Lan Yingying swallowed nervously as she stared at the glistening silver bracelet in her grasp. I don't know how to thank you, she said with a troubled look on her face. You don't need to repay me for it really. Even if you say that, this treasure is too. Yuan suddenly placed his palm on her head and started aggressively rubbing it, causing her hair to fly everywhere. His random action left Lan Yingying speechless. Yuan chuckled at her appearance and said, Don't even think about it. Lan Yingying slowly nodded her head, her face flushed with redness. After leaving Lan Yingying's room, Yuan left the Cultivator's haven with Xiaohua by his side. Are you ready? He asked her. She nodded with a confident look on her face. Then let's head to the Vanishing Valley. C1411 Vanishing Valley. Chapter 1411 Vanishing Valley. 1411 Vanishing Valley. After leaving the Cultivator's haven with Xiaohua, Yuan went to find the teleportation device in their city. When he found it, Yuan approached the individual managing it and said, "I'd like to travel to Black Fog City." Black Fog City? That's very far away from here, so it'll cost 200,000 spirit stones. The manager said. 200,000, right? Here. Yuan paid the money without hesitation. The manager took a moment to count the spirit stones before nodding his head. "All right, I have confirmed your payment. Give me a few minutes to adjust the device." As he waited for the device, Yuan recalled the directions Dong Yi had given him to the Vanishing Valley. A few minutes later, Yuan stepped through the teleportation device, traveling to the other side of the world in the blink of an eye. The instant he emerged from the portal, he was met with an eerie scene. His view was obstructed by a black fog that seemingly engulfed the entire city. The atmosphere was chilling, and it felt like he had already arrived at the Shadow Realm. Of course, Yuan had learned of this place before his arrival, so he wasn't shocked by the scene. The fog is thicker than I'd anticipated. Luckily, it doesn't have any harmful effects on the body. Still, how does one live in such an environment? He wondered to himself as he started walking north. While the black fog obstructed his vision, he had no issues seeing with his divine sense. When he used his divine sense to examine his surroundings, he sensed hundreds of thousands of presents within the city. Surprisingly, there were more residents than he anticipated. Due to the environment, the cost of living within the city was extremely low, making it an ideal place to live for those without money. And since the black fog was only aesthetically unpleasant and somewhat inconvenient, many people chose to live here despite the ghastly atmosphere. As for the black fog, it originated from the Vanishing Valley. Given the close proximity of Black Fog City to the Vanishing Valley, it was an unavoidable inconvenience. After leaving the city, Yuan flew high into the sky, where the fog couldn't reach, and he continued moving north. As he approached the Vanishing Valley, the black fog thickened and ascended higher into the air. Gradually, it began emitting a faint and unpleasant dusty smell. Yuan reacted by covering his body in a thin layer of spiritual energy, separating himself from the smell. A few days later, Yuan stopped moving when he noticed thousands of signs in the distance. Vanishing Valley ahead. Stay away. Turn around. Turn around. Turn around. Only death awaits those who ignore the warnings. Danger. 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 Thousands of such signs were positioned before the Vanishing Valley, spanning for miles and forming a bizarre barrier that couldn't be disregarded. If Yuan had come across this place by accident and seen these signs, he would have turned around without any hesitation. Unfortunately, he came here with a very specific goal in mind, and that goal was only achievable if he entered the Vanishing Valley. After taking a deep breath and mentally preparing himself, Yuan flew past the signs and entered the Vanishing Valley several miles ahead. The instant Yuan passed the tree line that was within the Vanishing Valley's territory, he sensed a subtle change in the atmosphere, almost like head slipped through an invisible wall. He turned around to find that the tree lines he had just traversed had vanished entirely, replaced by an expansive emptiness stretching for countless miles. So this is the illusion that Dong Yi mentioned, huh? He mumbled in a low voice. Yuan didn't linger and continued moving forward. Unfortunately for him, there were no maps of the Vanishing Valley, so he could only wander aimlessly until he found something recognizable, such as the giant sword that Dong Yi had warned him about. However, he couldn't afford to travel too swiftly or recklessly, given the presence of innumerable magical beasts roaming the Vanishing Valley, with many capable of rivaling even immortal cultivators. Xiaohua left his Dantian shortly after they entered the Vanishing Valley, accompanying him by his side, to ensure that he wouldn't feel alone in this dangerous land. Several hours into their journey, they encountered their first magical beast. Careful, there's a magical beast hidden within the fog about a mile away, Yuan said out loud. This magical beast resembled a giant toad. It had purple skin with large black needles on its back, almost like that of a porcupine. Spirit enlightenment. Yuan could tell its cultivation at a glance. That's a great violet toad, Brother Yuan. The needles on its back are coated in a deadly poison that could kill a divine warrior expert in seconds, and it has the ability to shoot them out of its body like a projectile, Xiaohua said, showcasing her knowledge. Yuan nodded. He summoned the Empyrean Overlord and threw it at the great violet toad, killing it in a single hit. Ding. Ha. That toad was an elite boss? Yuan was not expecting to see an announcement for such a simple kill. Brother Yuan, you should salvage its needles. They are quite valuable even in the upper heavens, Xiaohua said to him afterward. Yuan nodded and collected the needles. Great violet toad's needle. Material. Description. Very durable and contains deadly poison. Now that I have it in my hands, it kind of resembles the black anguish needle I acquired some time ago. Perhaps it was created with this? Yuan expressed his thoughts after seeing their familiarities. Most spiritual treasures are created with parts salvaged from magical beasts, so it's very likely, Xiaohua said. After storing the needles, they resumed their journey. Half an hour later. Another elite boss. Don't tell me all of the magical beasts in the Vanishing Valley are such entities. Yuan muttered in a dazed voice as he glared at the announcement with a weird look on his face. C1412 Elite Bosses. Chapter 1412 Elite Bosses. 1412 Elite Bosses. Not even half a day has passed since Yuan entered the Vanishing Valley. During this short amount of time, had killed 5 unique magical beasts, all of them releasing an announcement shortly after being slain. The players were bewildered by how many announcements were appearing that day, and all of them were related to player Yuan hunting elite bosses. Seeing how many unique elite bosses were being hunted so quickly, they wondered if Yuan had found a hidden dungeon filled with such bosses. However, even if they knew his location and wanted to follow him, none of these players were insane enough to enter the 4th heaven. While several thousand players have entered the 4th heaven, most of these people were scouters hired by others to gather information about the realm. Again, how many more announcements are we going to have to see before it stops? The players were already getting fed up with the spam. Unbeknownst to them, this was just the very beginning. Several more days came and went quickly while Yuan continued to wander the Vanishing Valley with Xiaohua by his side. During this time, he's encountered plenty of magical beasts at the level of Spirit Sovereign to Divine Grandmasters. He slew all of them except one. A red-eyed black lizard that had a cultivation base even he could not fathom. This lizard stood 20 meters tall, and was the length of 3 school buses. Xiaohua recognized it as a tyrant lizard king, a very aggressive and vicious magical beast that could spit out bone-melting venom and destroy mountains with the swing of its tail. Yuan thought that he would stop finding so many unique magical beasts by now. But new magical beasts kept on appearing with barely any repeats, almost as though the Vanishing Valley was a zoo of exotic and powerful magical beasts. During these few days, Yuan's name would constantly appear in the sky, sometimes a dozen times in a single day. The players had grown so sick of seeing these announcements that they started outright ignoring them, acting as though they didn't exist. Unfortunately, because of this, some players who weren't Yuan and managed to receive an announcement would be completely ignored by the majority of players. Heavens! It's been 2 weeks now, and he's still finding new elite bosses to kill? Just where is he farming? Wang Xiaoying stared at the sky with a slight smile on her face while she practiced her alchemy outdoors. Meanwhile, the internet blew up with speculations about the treasures Yuan had gotten after killing so many elite bosses. He must have a mountain of treasures by now. Fuck. I am so envious. The last time I fought an elite boss was 3 months ago, and I couldn't even defeat it. In the end, I had to run away. Alas, the distance between player Yuan and the rest of us has increased yet again. After wandering the seemingly endless Vanishing Valley for 3 weeks, Yuan finally encountered a landmark that could direct him toward the Shadow Realm. In the distance, a mountain loomed with a distinct shape resembling a head, and there were several of them all lined up to form a mountain range. If one looked closely, one would be able to see a laughing expression on the body of these mountains, looking as though they were mocking the world. The Mocking Mountain Range. If we follow the direction of their faces, we should arrive at our next landmark, the Red Garden of Death. Yuan muttered out loud. He looked at Xiaohua and asked, "Do you need a small break before we continue?" Even though she shook her head, Yuan decided to take a small break at the Mocking Mountain range. As they approached the mountains, Yuan was struck by sudden chills, almost as though his instincts were warning him. Suddenly, on the other side of the mountain range, a shadowy figure emerged from the ground, quickly rising toward the heavens. "Brother Yuan, we need to leave immediately," Xiaohua suddenly shouted with a rare nervous look on her face. This shadowy figure took on the form of a human, but its entire essence seemed to be composed of the same black fog that enshrouded the entirety of the Vanishing Valley. Upon closer inspection, one could discern black fog oozing from its body. Whatever this entity was, it evidently served as the source of the black fog. "Just what is that thing?" Yuan asked as they turned around and flew away. "I don't know. I have never seen anything like that before, but my instincts were telling me to stay away from it," Xiaohua said, her voice still a little shaky. "It looked like it crawled out of the ground. Let's wait for it to leave before we go back there," Yuan said. Xiaohua nodded. They waited a few days to see if the shadowy entity would leave, but it barely moved from its position. As he stared at the shadowy entity from a safe distance, Yuan got the feeling that had seen such an entity before. That's right. The colossal on the desolate continent had a similar appearance. Does that mean this shadowy entity was created by someone with the purpose of guarding something? Yuan wondered to himself. No. There's no way someone could have created this monster. Even if they did, why would they leave it here? Eventually, the shadow entity left the Mocking Mountain range, allowing Yuan and Xiaohua to approach the place once again. Even though they could have left at any time, Yuan wanted to see if the shadowy entity had left anything behind. C1413 Red Garden of Death. Chapter 1413 Red Garden of Death. 1413 Red Garden of Death. Upon arriving at the Mocking Mountain range, Yuan approached the area the unknown entity roamed to see if it had left any clues about its identity behind. Even though he wasn't particularly interested in the entity itself, he had a weird feeling when he saw it, almost as if he was connected to it in some ways. However, he found no clues left behind, not even a footstep, which was weird, considering its large size. Suddenly, a voice resounded inside his head. "My liege, I, your loyal servant, Dong Yi, have arrived at the fourth heaven. Can you hear me from your place?" Yuan spoke out loud. "Yes, I can hear you loud and clear. Do you know my location as well?" "Yes, I can sense your presence within the Vanishing journey. However, I am unable to pinpoint your precise location. While I am away, I'd like you to watch over my friends at the Cultivator's Haven." "Naturally. Also, I have a question. There is this large entity within the Vanishing Valley that is covered in black fog. The same black fog that permeates the place. Do you know anything about it?" Yuan asked. "Black fog, do you mean the Black Death? That is the second most dangerous entity within the Vanishing Valley, right behind the spirit. Although it doesn't appear to be aggressive, it wanders around the Vanishing Valley, killing everything it touches. Rumors say the Black Death is currently searching for something. Do you know what this something is?" Those who have encountered the Black Death have said to heard its voice, and it would always utter the same words, being Fragment and Outer God. Fragment? Outer God? Yuan repeated these twos in a low voice to see if it would trigger any memories, but alas, nothing came up. "Why do you ask, my liege? Do you recognize the Black Death?" Dong Yi suddenly asked. "No, but I sensed a subtle connection with it," he admitted. "A connection, huh? Even if it's vague, you shouldn't ignore it, my liege, as it could have something to do with your previous incarnations." Yuan nodded. "I am aware, but there are no clues, and I do not want to risk my life finding out. I'll see what happens after I visit the Shadow Realm." Their conversation ended there, and Yuan continued his journey within the Vanishing Valley. "Xiaohua, do the words Fragment and Outer God mean anything to you?" Yuan asked her as they made their way to the Red Garden of Death. Xiaohua closed her eyes to ponder seriously. "Outer God. I think I have heard my father uttering such words before, but these memories are vague. Xiaohua said a moment later. I see. I guess we have another reason to visit the primordial realm now, Yuan smiled. Several days later they arrived at the Red Garden of Death, and as its name suggests, it was a field of red flowers, more specifically spider lilies. Additionally, there were countless skeletons scattered around and within the field, giving it a chilling atmosphere. Red Garden of Death. It is said that magical beasts dwelling within the Vanishing Valley, sensing the approach of their demise, are drawn instinctively to this place to breathe their final breath. Nobody knows the reason for this phenomenon, either. Upon closer examination, one would discern human skeletons interspersed amidst the sea of bones within the garden. Yuan and Xiaohua lingered for a few minutes to admire the beautiful yet eerie scenery. Just as they prepared to leave, they noticed a presence slowly approaching them from a distance. Yuan immediately retrieved his weapon to confront the incoming presence. However, he lowered his weapon when he saw the entity. It was a magical beast, its form marred by grievous wounds, its internal organs exposed, hanging from its body amidst the numerous injuries it endured. The magical beast walked into the Red Garden of Death with rigid movement, until it could no longer lift a leg, collapsing in the middle of the garden. Once it took its last breath, the magical beast closed its eyes. Then the spider lilies within the Red Garden of Death abruptly began exuding a crimson-hued gas that enshrouded the field. Seeing this, Yuan and Xiaohua quickly ascended higher into the air, not daring to touch this unknown gas. Their actions were promptly validated as the corpse of the magical beast began to dissolve, gradually diminishing until only its bones remained. After the Red Garden of Death absorbed the magical beast's corpse, a single spider lily sprouted at the edge of the field. There were tens of millions of spider lilies in the Red Garden of Death. If each of them represented a corpse the garden absorbed, that meant tens of millions of entities took their last breath in this place. Let's head to our next destination, the Vanishing Pond, Yuan said a moment later. Xiaohua nodded. Fragment of Outer God. A hoarse and chilling voice suddenly resounded, causing Yuan and Xiaohua to turn around. To their surprise, the Black Death had appeared behind them like a ghost without any warning. It was still several miles behind them, but it was close enough to send shivers down their spines. Seeing this, Yuan wrapped his arm around Xiaohua's small waist and ran with vermilion phoenix dominating the heavens, escaping towards the direction of the Vanishing Pond as though their lives depended on it. That was dangerous. I couldn't sense its presence even though it was so close to us. Yuan cried inwardly. If the Black Death hadn't spoken, it could have sneaked up on them with ease. The realization of potentially perishing without even discerning it brought home the gravity of his predicament within the Vanishing Valley. He had underestimated the dangers of this place due to the relatively smooth progress thus far. However, his close encounter with the Black Death had opened his eyes to the true perils lurking within. In the blink of an eye, Yuan traveled hundreds of miles, not daring to stop until they were tens of thousands of miles away from the Red Garden of Death. C1414 Black Death. Chapter 1414 Black Death 1414 Black Death. That was dangerous, a little too dangerous. Yuan sighed out loud after looking around without seeing the Black Death in sight. Sorry for grabbing you so suddenly, Xiaohua. He quickly realized that he was still carrying her like luggage and released her. It's okay, she shook her head. If not for the dark atmosphere, Yuan would have noticed her cheeks were rosy. I was captivated by the Red Garden of Death and stopped using divine sense for a moment, but I will not make that mistake again. Xiaohua then said. It's not Brother Yuan's fault. I also failed to notice it until it was almost too late. He nodded. Now then. I made sure to escape toward the direction of the Vanishing Pond, but I don't know if I went past it. The Vanishing Pond has this phenomenon where it disappears for several hours every few minutes. The Vanishing Pond was exactly several thousand breaths from the Red Garden of Death, if one moved at a certain speed. Unfortunately, Yuan was too occupied to count his breaths or control his speed, so he had no clue if he had gone too far or still needed to travel some more. The only way we'll find the entrance to the Shadow Realm now is... Yuan shifted his gaze from Xiaohua to the small silhouette of a sword in the far distance. That must be the giant sword. Yuan muttered in a low voice. Xiaohua, things will get even more dangerous as we get closer to the giant sword, not to mention the spirit. Stay in my dantian for the time being. He knew Xiaohua was capable, but he didn't want to risk anything. Xiaohua nodded. I will watch Brother Yuan's back, so you don't have to worry about that thing sneaking up on us again. After saying that, she entered his dantian. Yuan started moving toward the giant sword shortly after, but he didn't dare to travel too fast. A few minutes later, he sensed not just one but several fathomless presence appear around him. I am surrounded. Yuan immediately concealed all of his presence and entered the black fog near the ground, further erasing his existence. A few moments later, several magical beasts appeared and, without hesitation, immediately started attacking one another. Yuan slowly distanced himself as he watched with amazement. Why are they fighting each other? He wondered. Magical beasts typically avoid each other, but in the Vanishing Valley, where food and water are scarce resources, they could only feast upon other magical beasts' flesh and blood, especially since they were all of different bloodlines. Moreover, consuming other magical beasts would further boost their own strength. In the blink of an eye, 2 of the 4 magical beasts that appeared were slain, their corpses disappearing into the black fog. Even if he wanted to loot the corpses, Yuan could barely endure the powerful ripples created by the magical beasts' clashes, as it contained something he experienced recently, Immortal Qi. Fortunately, the Immortal Qi emitted by these magical beasts was nowhere near as strong as Senior Bei's Immortal Qi. Suddenly, amid his escape, one of the attacks from the magical beasts coincidentally flew his way. Shit! What kind of luck is this? Yuan suddenly recalled the major misfortune curse that came alongside the Celestial Emperor's curse that greatly reduced his luck. It was not an attack that Yuan could avoid, so he could only block it even if it would reveal his presence. He gathered as much spiritual energy as he could in a short amount of time, and released it at the incoming attack. Boom! The clash created a powerful ripple that swept the black fog around them, revealing Yuan's figure to the magical beasts, who stopped fighting to look at the newcomer. In the eyes of a magical beast, the taste of a human's flesh and blood was far superior to that of a beast, so they would always prioritize hunting humans first. Once Yuan's presence was exposed, the 2 immortal magical beasts ignored each other and charged at Yuan with an unfathomable sense of yearning. Seeing this, Yuan turned tail and used Vermilion Phoenix dominating the heavens to soar towards the giant's sword in the distance. Omicron M, however, unlike the Black Death, these magical beasts were able to chase after him, even slowly inching toward him. While they played cat and mouse, the magical beasts would constantly bombard Yuan with attacks from behind, closing their distance with every attack. If Yuan hadn't gained some distance from the magical beasts in the beginning, he would have already been caught by them. Realizing that he wouldn't be able to escape from these magical beasts for much longer, Yuan started attacking them as he flew. Limitless Sword, First Domain. Endless Sword Stream. 5,000 swords appeared in the sky and started raining down on the magical beasts. Each of these swords was imbued with enhanced sword chi, but they were ineffective against these magical beasts, bouncing off their body like throwing rocks at a mountain. My enhanced sword aura is unable to pierce their immortal qi. Yuan swallowed nervously after realizing this. If physical attacks were ineffective, he could only try spiritual attacks. After taking a moment to prepare, Yuan suddenly stopped moving, turned around, and activated Immortal Monarch's dominion on the magical beasts. Halt! He roared at them. Sure enough, the magical beasts immediately stopped moving and stared at him in a dazed manner. Kill each other, he commanded. As though they were bewitched by a power beyond their understanding, the magical beasts shifted their gaze from Yuan to each other, and, before long, resumed their fight. It really worked. Yuan swallowed nervously. Brother Yuan, that thing is back. Xiaohua suddenly alerted him. Fragment of Outer God. The Black Death had appeared like a ghost in front of the magical beasts, yet the beasts were unaware and continued fighting each other. When the Black Death took a step toward Yuan, its body passed through the magical beasts, causing them to collapse instantly, as if they had fallen asleep. However, their eyes were wide open and without any signs of life. Seeing this, Yuan immediately started running toward the giant's sword again. C1415 Giant's Sword. Chapter 1415 Giant's Sword. 1415 Giant's Sword. As Yuan soared through the Vanishing Valley at neck-breaking speed, he heard a chilling voice resound from behind. Fragment of Outer God. Brother Yuan, that thing is chasing after you. Xiaohua alerted him in a nervous voice. Why now? It didn't follow us before. Yuan cried out loud. He turned to look back, and sure enough, the Black Death was chasing after him with large strides. It was a terrifying scene straight from horror movies, sending chills throughout Yuan's body. He gritted his teeth and tossed several sword lights infused with enhanced sword aura at the Black Death. As the sword lights made contact with the Black Death, they penetrated its body, vanishing within it. Yuan was baffled by what had just witnessed. The enhanced sword aura had completely vanished within the Black Death's body, almost as though they were erased from existence. Dongyi, does the Black Death have any weaknesses? Yuan shouted out loud, hoping Dongyi could hear him. A few moments later, Dongyi responded, but it was not what Yuan had hoped to hear. Regrettably, the Black Death possesses no discernible weakness. Anything it comes into contact with perishes, whether it be spiritual energy or treasures. In essence, that entity is effectively invincible. Well, I am being chased by said invincible being right now. Do you have any advice to get me out of this situation? He asked. What? Why would the Black Death chase after you, my liege? It's known for ignoring everything even when provoked. Are you sure it's not a coincidence the Black Death is moving in your direction? Coincidence, my ass. It's literally running after me, he cried. Dongyi frowned when he heard this, and he pondered whether he should intervene in this situation, or let fate handle it like usual. No. Fate led him to the Vanishing Valley for a reason. I cannot intervene, or my liege will grind these old bones once he fully recovers his memories. Dongyi quickly came to a decision. He then said, You are not fated to die in the Vanishing Valley, my liege. Just do whatever you usually do. Thanks for the help, Yuan exclaimed in a sarcastic tone. He continued soaring toward the giant's sword over the next several days, ignoring all of the magical beasts he encountered, even the ones that attacked him. After all, even if he didn't lift an arm, the Black Death chasing after him would kill them with a simple touch. During these several days, Yuan analyzed the Black Death as he escaped from it. He noticed that none of the magical beasts there were able to see or sense the Black Death, almost as though it was invisible to them. It didn't matter if these beasts had immortal Qi or not, and because none of them could sense the Black Death, some would walk into its path and unknowingly perish. One could consider the Black Death as a type of fate for magical beasts, as it could not be seen or anticipated by them until it was already too late. Moreover, this kind of fate only leads the beasts to their death. The best that the magical beasts within the Vanishing Valley could do was to pray that they weren't destined to cross paths with the Black Death, much like how humans could only hope they weren't fated to perish at any given moment. As Yuan came to this realization, he sensed something change within him, almost as if something had awakened. However, he was too busy running away from the Black Death to think about it. Suddenly, Yuan noticed the Black Death slowing down. Why is it stopping? Yuan didn't think for a second that the Black Death might have gotten tired of chasing after him, and quickly deduced that it was probably unwilling to approach the giant's sword for some reason. Seeing this, he continued approaching the giant's sword. The Black Death eventually stopped chasing after him and disappeared. However, without realizing it, Yuan had gotten much closer to the giant's sword than had anticipated. Although Senior Bai had warned him to not get too close to the giant's sword, he wanted to see the mentioned spirit even if it was just a glimpse. Yuan stopped his movements to stare at the majestic sword in the distance, his gaze filled with awe. The giant's sword was unlike anything Yuan had encountered before. Its blade boasted intricate engravings, adding to its allure. Yet what captivated Yuan's attention the most was undeniably the enigmatic aura emanating from the sword. The aura bore a resemblance to both sword aura and enhanced sword aura, yet it possessed an entirely distinct quality that was unfathomably stronger and sharper. As though he was mesmerized by it, Yuan stared at the sword with a dazed look on his face. Ding. Omicron. Even the system cannot identify it. Yuan muttered to himself as he saw the notice. Suddenly, before he could even take a moment to contemplate the mysterious aura, Yuan's entire body shuddered, as if it were warning him of imminent danger. He instinctively used his movement technique. The very instant Yuan moved, a potent sword aura descended upon the spot where he had stood just a split second ago, blowing away the black fog and creating a massive 10-mile-long sword mark in the ground. This sword mark was also so deep that one would not be able to see the bottom with their bare eyes. Yuan stared at the sword mark with wide eyes, his back soaked in cold sweat. Fuck. Even my regeneration ability wouldn't be able to save me if I was struck by such a devastating attack. He cried inwardly. Brother Yuan, look at the top of the sword. Xiaohua suddenly said. Yuan lifted his gaze to the very top of the giant sword, where a silhouette that hadn't been there moments before silently observed him. The spirit. Yuan immediately recognized the identity of this silhouette, even though he couldn't see its appearance. C1416 Fearsome Existence. Chapter 1416 Fearsome Existence. 1416 Fearsome Existence. Just as Senior Bai had mentioned, the spirit assumed the form of a human. Despite the distance between them, Yuan could discern that it bore the likeness of a slender female figure, its long hair being caressed by the gentle and ominous wind. Yuan tried to take a closer look at this spirit, but there was an invisible force that blocked his divine sense from approaching it after a certain distance. It was clear that the spirit did not welcome his gaze. However, after the initial attack, the spirit did not attack Yuan again, almost as though it was only trying to warn him, or so he thought. The next moment, he watched as the spirit raised its arm before swinging it in his direction. Sha. Boom. A potent sword light lashed out at Yuan's location like a whip, carving another deep sword mark into the ground, stretching for miles. Brother Yuan, what are you doing? We need to get out of here as soon as possible. That is not an opponent you can fight. Xiaohua exclaimed in a terrified voice. Even with all the time he had spent with her, Yuan had never witnessed Xiaohua display such evident fear before. This underscored the incomprehensible power and sheer terror that the spirit of the giant's sword wielded. After confirming its fearsome existence, Yuan, not wanting to aggravate the spirit anymore, turned around and started running toward the Shadow Realm's entrance. Judging by the giant's sword view from my position, I should be very close to it. Yuan thought to himself as he activated Vermilion Phoenix dominating the heavens. Normally, he would test the water by throwing a few attacks at his aggressors, just like he did with the Black Death, but he truly did not want to find out what would happen if he were to attack this incomprehensible spirit. Although I couldn't sense it at first, its attacks are imbued with enhanced sword aura, and they are even many times more powerful than mine. Yuan glanced at the second sword mark that still lingered with the spirit's enhanced sword aura. If his enhanced sword aura were to clash with the spirit's enhanced sword aura, he would undoubtedly lose. Miserably at that. Yuan could sense the spirit's sharp gaze following him even without looking at it. He was moving at an extreme speed that would bewilder even Divine Realm experts. Yet the spirit could easily follow his movements. A few seconds later, Yuan was hit by another chilling sensation that sent shivers throughout his entire body. He immediately halted his movements, not daring to move an inch. Bang. 4 sword marks appeared around him the very next second. If he had continued moving, even changing directions, he would have perished to the spirit's attack, which anticipated even his escape routes. The only thing the spirit hadn't anticipated was his sudden halt, which saved his life. This is fucking crazy. Yuan cried inwardly as he started soaring toward the Shadow Realm's entrance once again. The spirit, as though it was impressed by Yuan's performance, stopped attacking him for the time being, but its gaze remained fixated on him, watching his every movement. A few minutes later, Yuan barely noticed a black portal in the distance. That must be the entrance to the Shadow Realm. Even though he was relieved to finally see the entrance, he still had to worry about getting there safely, as he hadn't forgotten about the spirit that was still watching him. Sure enough, just as he was mere moments away from reaching the portal, he sensed the spirit's aura abruptly erupt, reaching the heavens. Yuan's entire body trembled violently, as though it was warning him of his immediate demise. With a strong sense of foreboding that he would not survive the incoming attack, Yuan didn't hesitate to unleash all of his hidden strength. Heaven's supremacy. A majestic golden aura enveloped Yuan as an unfathomable power surged forth from the depths of his body. When the golden immortal physique detected the power of heaven's supremacy, it responded by manifesting a semi-transparent armor that enveloped his entire body. Progress. 10%. This golden armor did not obstruct Yuan's movements, nor did it have any weight to it. However, it further boosted Yuan's prowess to even greater heights, rivaling that of the spirit. Omicron M. Come. Empyrean Overlord. Yuan summoned his sword and activated God of War's astral arts. The spirit's figure visibly shook after seeing the Empyrean Overlord. It instinctively pulled back its attack, but it acted a little too late. A massive amount of spiritual energy and enhanced sword aura descended upon Yuan, surpassing the attack he used on Senior by several times. 9 Supreme Swords. Yuan used the 9 Supreme Swords, executing a series of rapid sword strikes in quick succession, each several magnitudes stronger than the last. When Yuan's all-out assault collided with the spirit's attack, it generated a colossal ripple that rent space asunder, and instilled fear in every existence within the Vanishing Valley that sensed it, regardless of their cultivation level. It took 6 out of 9 of the 9 supreme sword strikes to obliterate the spirit's attack, leaving the remaining 3 to hurtle toward the spirit itself. However, Yuan was not willing to wait for the results and immediately charged into the entrance to the Shadow Realm. Why? The spirit raised a hand and extended it in Yuan's direction, but he had already disappeared into the Shadow Realm by that point. The spirit remained in that position like a stone statue, just as the final 3 sword strikes from Yuan's 9 supreme swords closed in on the spirit. It nonchalantly swung its arm, effortlessly dismantling the most formidable attack Yuan could muster at that moment, treating it with nonchalance. That sword just now, it can't be. The spirit muttered in a dazed voice as it recalled the image of Yuan's Empyrean Overlord inside its head. It desired to pursue Yuan to confirm its suspicions, but its movements were constrained, unable to stray too far from the giant's sword. Furthermore, the entrance to the Shadow Realm lay beyond its travel range, rendering any efforts futile. C1417 Returning to the Shadow Realm. Chapter 1417 Returning to the Shadow Realm. 1417. Returning to the Shadow Realm. Upon escaping into the Shadow Realm, Yuan took a good minute to breathe after nearly losing his life to the spirit's devastating attack. I have never been so close to experiencing death, not even when I actually died inside the Nameless Emperor's tomb. Yuan cried out loud as he fell flat on the cold ground. That spirit was immensely powerful, perhaps even stronger than Senior Bai. Xiaohua came out of his dantian to comfort him. Yet you managed to escape unscathed, Brother Yuan. Yuan looked at his sweaty palms and sighed. Yes, but at the cost of my last usage of heaven's supremacy. Unless I gain its approval, I won't be able to call forth its power again, and we might have to face that spirit again once we leave the Shadow Realm. Without heaven's supremacy, Yuan knew he had no hopes of escaping the spirit a second time. In fact, he believed that even if he had unlimited usage of heaven's supremacy, it still wouldn't be close to enough to defeat the spirit at his current strength. Once head rested enough and composed himself again, Yuan examined his surroundings. Just as when he first entered the Shadow Realm back at the Dragon Essence Temple, he found himself amidst a desolate and dilapidated cityscape that looked like it had been void of life for eras. However, there were no trials for him to do. Is this place located in the same dimension as the Dragon Essence Temple's Shadow Realm? Yuan voiced his concerns aloud, feeling a twinge of worry at the possibility of them being separated. as it meant he wouldn't be able to search for the God Ascension Realm experts he met before in this Shadow Realm. However, he quickly recollected one of the God Ascension Realm experts mentioning that the Shadow Realm had multiple entrances. Hence, there was a reasonable likelihood that they existed somewhere within this particular Shadow Realm. The only challenge lay in locating them amidst this vast and unfamiliar terrain. Where should I begin? He sighed. Unlike the Vanishing Valley, where he was given instructions on reaching the Shadow Realm, he had no clue where to even begin once he arrived at the destination. In the end, he could only think of one solution. I guess we'll have to wander around until we find something again, he muttered. His divine sense was strong enough to cover the entire abandoned city, and even several miles outside, where the real Shadow Realm was located. Once Xiaohua returned to his Dantian, he went into the sky and flew outside the city, entering the Shadow Realm. Immediately after leaving the city, shadowy entities of various shapes and sizes began appearing around Yuan, their red eyes staring at him with immense bloodlust. Human. 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 Their hoarse voices constantly resounded, reminding Yuan of his first encounter with these banished souls. However, unlike when he was only a spirit grandmaster, he was not completely clueless in the Shadow Realm, and even had sufficient prowess to wander the place without worrying too much about the banished souls. The banished souls were also slightly stronger than he remembered, but they weren't nearly strong or fast enough to threaten him as long as he paid attention. They were most likely powerful cultivators in the past, but they've been reduced to such a pitiful state after wandering as a trapped soul for countless years. Only someone with a cruel and indifferent heart could do such a thing to them. Xiaohua voiced her sentiments, expressing sympathy for these banished souls, noting the resemblance of their plight to that of exiles within the primordial realm. Similar to these banished souls, exiles themselves are trapped within the primordial realm by the celestial emperor. However, exiles, at the very least, retain their physical bodies and possess a glimmer of hope for eventual freedom through the supreme heaven's legacy. Meanwhile, banished souls are forsaken and left to languish in this dark and desolate realm, though they may harbor a flicker of hope that someone like Yuan might appear to rescue them from the Shadow Realm. Such occasions are less likely to occur than an exile completing the supreme heaven's legacy, as not even immortal cultivators dare to venture into this forbidding domain. As Yuan ventured deeper into the Shadow Realm, the banished souls grew progressively more powerful, their bloodlust for him intensifying with each passing moment. Senior Bai warned me to not attack them since it will aggravate them even further, but they will eventually overwhelm me at this rate. Yuan sighed inwardly as he contemplated using Dragon's Gaze on these banished souls. In the end, he decided to scare them a little without actually hurting them. He activated Dragon's Gaze without directing it at any of the banished souls, serving it as a warning to them. Scram if you don't want your soul to perish. Yuan let out a resounding roar, his voice amplified by soul strength. When the banished souls perceived the formidable prowess of Yuan's soul strength, they abruptly ceased their pursuit, and even fled as if their lives hung in the balance. Though they may not have the intelligence to comprehend it, their instincts, honed through their experiences in life, could sense impending doom and instinctively recoil from it. That worked better than I'd anticipated, Yuan thought to himself as he continued wandering the Shadow Realm without a single banished soul in sight. However, it was not as though the banished souls vanished entirely. Yuan could still perceive them with his divine sense. They remained present, albeit at a distance, silently observing his every movement, as if they were waiting for him to lower his guard. Their moment to strike. Knowing this, Yuan didn't dare to ease his guard, and continued to exude some of his soul strength once in a while as a reminder to these banished souls that he still could erase their existences at will. Moreover, Yuan's act of releasing his soul strength was not within the purview of just anyone. It was achievable only due to his ample soul strength and the accumulated knowledge from his past lives. Typically, only immortal cultivators who have cultivated their souls for centuries would dare to use their soul strength in such an extravagant manner, as it could potentially inflict harm upon their soul if executed incorrectly or impulsively. Yet Yuan executed it with ease, as if it was second nature, akin to the act of breathing. C1418 A Familiar Place. Chapter 1418 A Familiar Place. 1418 A familiar place. Now that no banished souls dared to approach him, Yuan found traveling the Shadow Realm much more relaxed. However, it didn't mean it was a leisure journey, as he had to focus on controlling the amount of soul strength he exuded. If he exuded too much, it might hurt the banished souls, causing them to rampage, but if it's too weak, it would not keep them away. Moreover, he had to be careful with such an act entirely, as it could easily backfire and damage his soul. Fortunately for him, his soul cultivation technique Heaven's Indomitable Soul constantly recovered his soul strength, or else he wouldn't have been able to use such a method. Several days later, Yuan still wandered the Shadow Realm without any clue as to his location. However, he noticed the banished souls growing stronger and stronger, requiring him to use more soul strength to keep them away. At the rate their strength is growing, I won't be able to keep up in another week or so, Yuan thought to himself. 3 days later, Yuan noticed another city in the distance. He immediately approached it. Upon entering the city, none of the banished souls dared to follow him past the city walls, almost as though they were forbidden from doing so. Yet, Yuan was unable to sense anything odd around the city, nothing that could explain why the banished souls refused to enter the city. He thought there was a formation around the city that kept the banished souls away, but he couldn't sense anything like that. Even if it was a powerful level 9 formation, he should still be able to sense it to a certain extent. Since he didn't have to worry about the banished souls appearing in the city, Yuan took this time to recover his soul strength and take a break. Once he fully recovered, Yuan did not immediately continue his journey and flew into the air to examine the city. This city isn't the same as the previous city, but it bears some resemblance, almost as though it's from the same city, just separated. Yuan muttered. He decided to look around the city to see if there were any more clues. As he strolled throughout the city, he felt a sense of nostalgia, almost as if had been to this place before it turned to such a sorry state. But where have I seen this place? He looked at the stores and such, hoping it'd trigger something within him. Golden dumplings. House of Starlight. Lao's perfect noodle. Unfortunately, the place was too small, and seeing the store names only further strengthened the feeling that he had been to this place before. If this is only a part of the whole city, there should be other similar places in the Shadow Realm. Perhaps I will find my answer once I visit enough of them. With this thought in mind, Yuan immediately left the city to find the next one. Even though he didn't know where he was going, Yuan moved with a sense of purpose without feeling hopeless or lost, as though he instinctively knew the layout of the Shadow Realm. He encountered another city 5 days later. I am certain now. This is just a portion of a city, and I have been to this city before. Yuan confirmed his suspicions after visiting the third city. However, he couldn't recall where and when he visited the place before, no matter how hard he racked his brains. He left the city to find the next one. However, the strength of the banished souls had reached the level where even Yuan could not keep them away with his soul strength without injuring them. So he had to return to avoiding them. This time, it took nearly 2 weeks to reach the next city. Unlike the first 3 cities, there was something distinctly different about this one. At its heart stood a towering and majestic pagoda, its height seemingly reaching the heavens themselves. So striking was its presence that Yuan spotted it from miles away. When Yuan saw this pagoda, a name immediately appeared inside his head, but he didn't dare to jump to conclusions. When he reached the city walls, he noticed a worn-down sign lying on the ground right before the entrance to the city. His expression froze when he read the words on the sign. Ah, as I thought, this place is City of Xian. Indeed, this place was the home of Tian Xian, also known as the evil god who slew the first celestial emperor, an evil abomination that killed millions of cultivators, enough to create an ocean of blood and mountains with corpses. Yuan descended beside the sign and stared at it with a profound expression on his face. Sometime later, he lifted it with spiritual energy and placed it above the city entrance, where it once sat with dignity. Afterward, he directed his gaze towards the pagoda at the heart of the city. Despite countless years of abandonment, it remained tall and majestic, seemingly untouched by the passage of time. He approached it with a heavy heart, feeling incredibly sorrowful for some reason. Even if he didn't have all of Tianxian's memories, it was a feeling he received from his soul. As Yuan approached the pagoda and stood at its entrance, he stared at the grand sign that hung above the doors. Invincible Heaven. Ah! As Yuan stood before the invincible heaven, memories that had been blocked started flowing into his mind once again. City Lord, what do you think of the name Invincible Heaven? I think it's quite the suitable name for someone like you. Someone who has yet to experience defeat. A young man asked him. Why are you asking me that when you've already made a sign and hung it up at the entrance? Tianxian shook his head with a gentle smile. The young man rubbed his nose in a bashful manner and said, We couldn't think of anything more fitting, so we went ahead of ourselves a little, he quickly continued. But we can tear it down and make another one if you really don't like it. No, this is fine. Good job. Thank you, City Lord. The young man bowed, showing a relieved expression on his face. You're tuning in to the Li Mei's Sword of Destiny YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.